edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero live with you from now until 6 o'clock this afternoon as we lead you into more Royals baseball. All right. Wow, the crowd goes completely dead silent.
Were you looking for a response from me?
Honestly, no. Look, there's only so much you can hope for or look forward to with the Royals, but that actually brings us to what we're going to start the show with coming up here in just a few moments. And that is about how long until, we know the team is bad. We know that the 2023 Royals are not a good product, not a good team. But when do we start to turn into, all right, we got to hold some feet to the fire here? Because I don't think we're even close to that yet, to be honest with you. Matt Quattrero is in his first year as a manager. JJ Piccolo actually has say over the roster for the very first time. New staff when it comes to pitching, some new minor league coaching staff. I don't think we can say anything sweeping about the projected success long-term of this team just based on this very crappy month of baseball. But we're going to get to that here and our respective positions on that coming up in just a moment. Also, later on today in the 5 o'clock hour, we will preview Game 2 between the Royals and the Orioles that is coming up tonight at the K. Also, today, a lot of K-State basketball and football to get to. Tylor Perry committed to Kansas State last night. Medea goes to Bramlage. No, Tylor Perry, the reigning Conference USA Player of the Year, averaged over 17 points a game, shot 41% from three for North Texas a season ago for the NIT champs. He is the latest Kansas State Wildcat, and I think right off the rip, he is the best player that Kansas State has coming into next year's team. We're going to talk about him and his commitment a little bit later on and what's next for K-State. Bottom of this hour, or pardon me, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, we will talk to Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up. We'll talk to Fitz about Tylor Perry, what K-State is still targeting in the portal, his thoughts on the guys who got drafted in the NFL draft last week from K-State, all that coming up during our Wildcat Wrap-Up. We've got our playoff roundup in our 580 Sports Talk headlines, and a story this week after some quotes by the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. You might say, what? 580 business talk? Well, sort of. If you're not a big fan of ESPN Plus, I would suggest that over the next few years, you maybe try to at least soften your feelings about it, because there's going to be a lot more content coming to that, not just our Big 12 content. We're talking like maybe NBA games are going to be there, maybe other pro sporting events, maybe even more college sporting events than already are, because it sounds like ESPN sooner or later is going to move a lot more content to that platform. And we'll talk about what that means for you coming up a little bit later on in the show today. Of course, we've got the rest of our 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you coming up in the 4 o'clock hour? We'll play One Gotta Go this hour. All that is coming up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk, as are your texts, 785-272-9429. That is the text line number, same number as the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We will also take your comments on our YouTube channel. The channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Head on over there. Go subscribe if you haven't already. Those subscriber numbers continue to go up. We appreciate you guys who have been following along, indulging us in watching all of our video content, all of our live shows, draft stuff, all of that. We would love for you to go subscribe if you haven't already. 246 subscribers. Let's see if we can get to 250.
Hey, now.
See if we can get a couple more and get to 250 here the next day or two. So if you haven't gone and subscribed yet, we would love for you to go do so. Free and easy to do. Go to YouTube, search for Sports on 580 WIBW, hit subscribe. It's free, and then you'll see all of our videos right there on your homepage every time you log into YouTube. But I did want to get to the Kansas City Royals before I ask my big overall question about the Royals' grace period, if you will. We do have some Royals roster news today.
Yes, we do.
Some good news, I would say. Here's the bad. Chris Bubich, 60-day IL. We already knew that. He's having Tommy John surgery. Austin Cox, another member of the 2018 pitchers draft class, is being called up. Jose Cuas is being optioned down to AAA. Now, I jokingly, just 10 minutes ago, we were sitting over in the sports corner here at the radio station, and I joked about, oh God, another member of the 2018 class. A lot of fanfare when they were drafted and some of them called up. It has been a bust to this point, largely, I think. But as you informed me, and I was mostly joking when I said that, but the numbers for Austin Cox in Omaha actually really good, no matter what. Like in any era, those are good numbers. But especially now when in AAA, I mean, it's home run derby every single night. They're phenomenal numbers.
So Austin Cox pitching for Omaha in the International League. Omaha's team ERA is 5.83. That is third to worst in the International League. The league earned run average is 4.91. That's pretty high. Austin Cox's earned run average is 2.21. And like you said, that's good anywhere. But when you give it context, as far as the league he's playing in, maybe the ballpark he's playing in, I don't know how hitter-friendly or not Omaha's ballpark tends to be. They're kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of their own runs per game and OPS as a team. But again, you tend to have very hitter-friendly environments. AAA, more than any of the other minor leagues, inflates offensive numbers and as such inflates ERA. So if you can carry an ERA in the twos as a starting pitcher, even if it's just over a 20 inning span, you're probably pitching fairly well. And Cox has been striking out over a batter of 9. Walks are a tick high. Don't love that, but it's the work of someone who has earned the opportunity, because I sat here behind this microphone yesterday and I said, Ryan Yarbrough is overextended as a starter. And boy, did we ever get Exhibit A on Ryan Yarbrough being overextended as a starter yesterday, because the first time through the batting order, he looked like Tom Glavine. He looked incredible. He was flinging that 73-mile-an-hour changeup, and Baltimore hitters had no chance. He struck out the first 5 guys he faced last night, which ties a Royals record. I think Danny Duffy was the last guy to do it, though I could be wrong. I could have misremembered that. But he tied a Royals record for the most strikeouts to start a game. 2 innings, dominant. 3 innings, hey, cooking with gas. 4th inning, he did not make it through the 4th inning. Because the way this works is generally when major league hitters see high school velocity one time, that might throw them. But when they get to see it a second time, they are capital R ready. And brother, they did some damage, just lacing the ball all over the place in that 4th inning and forcing Yarbrough out of the start early. So obviously, Ryan Yarbrough, again, like I said, overextended as a starter. Hear me now, believe me later on, or believe me now, I suppose. So this potentially is an opportunity for Cox to jump into the rotation, take a start or two, see how he looks. This is his time. This is the opportunity. Again, for that member of that class of 2018, one of the few, it's him and Jonathan Bolin who haven't made big league debuts yet. It's his turn. See what he's got.
And Bolin, of course, coming back from Tommy John surgery. So that's exciting. Whenever he gets out there, makes his major league debut, that's going to be a lot of fun. And I am just excited. We'll get to see and try something new with this Royals pitching staff, like we talked about yesterday. Figure out new approaches and new solutions to problems.
And Ann Rogers has just added to this on Twitter. Ann Rogers, who does yeoman's work as a Royals beat writer for MLB.com, the most tied in of the Royals beat writers, because the Athletic doesn't have one anymore. And the Kansas City Star guy I either hasn't started yet or is
just
about to get started.
Yeah.
Ann Rogers says that Cox's initial role will be to provide some length in the bullpen. He is fully rested. He was supposed to start today in Omaha, so he was scratched from that. He comes to the big club. The Royals bullpen obviously has been overextended, and he's going to have a chance to, should the Royals have another start where their starter fails to make it through 5 innings, which feels like a pretty likely occurrence here in the next handful of days. He can give some length. He is well rested, stretched out, and give some bullpen length. No indication as to whether he'll take the next turn in the rotation that might have been Yarbrough's instead. But that is worth keeping an eye on. And I have to imagine they were working him as a starter in AAA, that they would want to do that in the major leagues as well.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I think that's a good point. So we will talk more Royals baseball in terms of what's going on right now, coming up a little bit later as we preview tonight's game. We do know who's starting tonight for the Royals. It'll be Zach Greinke, who first 2 starts of the year were pretty good. And they were very good, in fact. Since then, not so much. It has been rough. How about an 8.24 ERA over his last 4 starts?
At
out of curiosity, and I have this in to talk about coming up at 5:40. Do you know what Mike Trout's OPS is this year?
I do not off the top of my head, no.
955.
I would have assumed it was well over 900 because that's the Mike Trout zone.
Do you know what Zach Greinke's opponent's OPS is in the last 4 starts?
I'm going to guess it's near 955.
It is exactly 955. Opposing batters are Mike Trout against Zach Greinke in the last month. Yeesh.
Look, nothing gold can stay.
No.
Is all I can tell you when it comes to Zach Greinke. A great pitcher. I think he's got a great Hall of Fame case. I don't know if he's going to get in, but starters in this era are going to be evaluated differently. And I think Zach Greinke with a Cy Young Award and with the 6 Gold Gloves and 6 All-Star games and the 2 ERA titles, 223 career wins as it stands.
20 seasons in the league?
Near 3,000 strikeouts. I think he's going to have a real chance at Cooperstown someday. But as Tom Cruise's character famously says in Cocktail, everything ends badly. Otherwise, it wouldn't end.
True. I mean, 6-time All-Star, multiple-time Gold Glove. It's different for pitchers, but still. I think he's in, to be completely honest with you. Guys have made it in with long careers that have ended far less gracefully than Zach Greinke's. I will say that for sure.
If you consider his prime having been from 2009, the Cy Young year in Kansas City, through the 2019 season where he was acquired from Houston and helped them get to the World Series, in that span of 344 starts, he went 171 and 78 with a 308 earned run average and nearly a strikeout per 9. He was remarkable in that stretch from 2009, like a decade-long peak.
Mm-hmm.
And in that stretch, won the Cy Young. Was when he went to all 6 of his All-Star games. Finished in the top 5 in Cy Young voting 2 other times. Finished in the top 20 in MVP voting twice, which is no small feat for a pitcher. For me, it's a Hall of Fame case. I gave up trying to guess how the Hall of Fame committee is going to vote. The baseball writers are going to vote anymore. But and I don't want to write the eulogy for Zach Greinke's career because he had in that stretch a year where he had an ERA over 4 with Arizona and then bounced back the next year and was 4th in the National League Cy Young voting. So not ready to write him off yet, but he's 39 years old. His best days are pretty clearly behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's having a rough go of it right now to start this season. At least he's back home where he has at least pitched better than he has out on the road.
True. I did want to ask about what I've determined to call the grace period for Royals management right now. We talked yesterday about concern level with a few specific pieces, Brady Singer, Bob Witt, MJ Melendez to be specific. And I don't think it is obvious right now this team is bad. The way this team is constructed, and this is because of years mostly of mismanagement and bad roster building by the Dayton Moore era and drafts that went awry for one reason or another. Not necessarily always the team's fault, but drafts that went awry, players that never developed, bad offense, bad drafts, etc. They're in a bad place right now. We knew they were going to be bad going into this year. Nothing Matt Quattrero and his new staff or JJ Piccolo in 1 year, nothing that group could have done to turn this from, oh God, this might be bad to, oh, well, maybe they'll contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah, not with the collection of talent on hand, they could have hired Casey Stengel and Branch Rickey, and it would still look like this.
And as we have talked about numerous times, it's not like there are reinforcements that are going to come swooping in. That, you know what, this is bad, but come June 1st, if it's not any better, we can call up 4 different dudes who are going to start. That was last year. That was bring Vinny up. That was bring Melendez up. They started the year with Witt. That was bring Prado up at some point. Try all these young dudes. There's none of that this year. The farm system, specifically double and triple A, really certainly in Omaha, there's just not, I know Austin Cox is coming up to help the pitching staff theoretically, but there's just not a lot there, as you've outlined before. That's, I think the phrase you've used is banging on the door to get to the major league club.
Yeah, all the guys who have graduated.
Yeah, there's just not a whole lot of that. Now, there are some good things that are long-term projected pieces. Year hasn't started all that well for MJ. It hasn't started much better than last year was for sophomore year Bobby Witt Jr., but those 2 guys are theoretically part of a core that has a lot of potential, and right now is being led by a guy who's going to have a genuine all-star case, not even just like you have to have an all-star. Like Vinny Pasquantino's been great to start this year, no doubt about that. So you've got at least a handful of pieces there that you want to build a core around. You also have, at the low levels of the minors, a lot of success right now. If you read, the guys from Royals Farm Report have talked about this. A handful of other Royals writers have brought this up, that the Royals at the high and low A-ball levels actually have a bunch of dudes who look like they're going to be nice pieces. So that's, again, long-term projections. I mean, we're talking 5-6 years out, but that's at least something you can build from, a small foundation you can start to build something from. And this staff in the front office, I'm sure, is looking at that and saying, okay, look, we're going to have to do something to replenish the higher levels of the minors. We're going to have to do something to find more major league or future major league talent, but we at least have something to work with. How much time do we give the coaching staff, including the manager, and the front office staff, where we can say, all right, look, you were left with the cupboard pretty much bare? Like, this roster and this system were bad going into this year. There's no doubt about it. The rebuild failed. Now you have to rebuild. You just don't have to go through the teardown process. You're already there. You've already had the teardown, and you're stuck there. How much time are you willing to give them before you say, we need to see some results? And the answer here might be multiple years, which I know as a fan sucks. Like that is just the absolute worst place you can be. But I think given where this team is and how few ready-to-go pieces there are throughout the organization, I feel like you need to see progress next season for sure. But I would say, I'm probably at the point where I'm thinking we got to get till 2025 before we say, all right, where are the real wins? Like, where are the streaks? Where is the getting close to 500?
This is not a roster capable of winning much above the level at which they have won, which is, of course, not much at all. Just a matter of fact. Pitching staff is old with really low ceilings. The offense is very thin. The guys playing in the corner outfield on a nightly basis cannot actually play the position. I said it on Twitter the other day, and then there was more evidence of it last night where MJ Melendez made a mess of one. Tough play, deep over his head to right field, but maybe somebody who has been a right fielder longer by trade maybe makes that catch. And then Eddie Olivares overruns a ground ball in the outfield on a play where he's got a chance to maybe throw somebody out. Like, Eddie O, much as I like the bat, I think there's something there. It's the DH. Like, he cannot play the outfield. So you've got two outfield positions, and the outfield is pretty important because that's a big outfield at Kauffman Stadium, and you've got at least one on just about every given night who's not really a corner outfielder, who doesn't have any business with a glove on standing out there trying to cover all that ground. And most nights it's two guys, because it's like Melendez and Olivares, or it's Olivares and Franmil Reyes, or it's Nick Pratto and Olivares, or it's Dozier out there. These guys aren't outfielders. And I understand MJ Melendez is young. You're trying to make him into one. And sometimes that works. Sometimes the on-the-job training works out. Look at Alex Gordon and all those gold gloves he stacked up after they moved him from third base to left field. Sometimes it works. I'm not saying it's never going to work for MJ Melendez. I feel confident in saying it's never going to work for Eddie O. Very confident in that. This team's got problems. So I don't think it's fair yet to start saying, man, Matt Quatrero's in over his head, because I haven't felt that. I haven't felt that in his lineup construction, in his handling of the bullpen, in his handling of the game in, game out stuff. I haven't felt that for him. The coaching staff, the pitching coaching staff is all brand new. So we've got a month with them. It's not great. It's a little better than it was under Cal Eldred, but not appreciably better. At least, again, not a month through the season. The hitting coaching staff, we saw really good returns from that group last year. So far this year, not so much. But how much better can they make Hunter Dozier and Michael Massey? It's unfair for me. Massey's at least a young player early in his career. There might still be something there. But how much can they do with a guy like Hunter Dozier, right? So we're still in the grace period. We're still very much in a grace period for these guys. And I think this has to be considered year zero, because it's not just we've got new guys in place. It's we've got new ideas we're trying to put in place. We've got a new philosophy we're trying to put in place. Organizationally, we are trying to shift to a more data-driven model of evaluating players, helping players, getting information to players, playing the game. The way you play might be different. The way some of these guys play, there's a very real chance that a lot of guys are being given information or being given instruction or being given tips about things they never considered before, things that are maybe alien to them, things that maybe they're struggling to adjust to, things that maybe they're thinking too much about early on in this process. Now, eventually, the hope is that those things, that information, and synthesizing that I didn't get it right, whatever.
Synthesizing?
That's the word. The information becomes second nature, and you get better at it, and you understand it more as time goes by. That's the risk you take when you're trying to overhaul, when you're trying to modernize, because effectively that's what the Royals are doing.
Right.
They're trying to modernize their operation from the top down. And I think that could take more time as a result in the dugout. So I am willing to give all kinds of patience to that side of the operation. The question I have is in the front office. How much different is J.J. Picollo really going to be than Dayton Moore when it comes to talent evaluation, when it comes to what they prioritize when they're looking for players, whether it's amateur talent or whether it's free agent talent or whether it's keeping guys on the team who haven't hit since 2019? We're picking on Hunter Dozier today. I feel badly about it.
Well, I think I understand the reason why, and that's because he sucks. I'm fine picking on it. Like,
okay.
Sorry, dude.
No, like... So
play better, we won't pick on you.
But that is, I think, that is my question about J.J. Picollo in the front office.
And that's entirely fair.
How wedded are they? How wedded is J.J. Picollo to this change that it feels like they're trying to bring about with an analytics department and in the dugout? How much are the left and the right hand working together in terms of assembling the team, assembling the 26-man roster? That, I think, is still an open question. I would love to see some more hires and have some more information on who is coming into the front office from an analytics standpoint, from a data standpoint. They've obviously brought some coaches in with some different ideas. That's a positive, but are the left and the right hand working together when it comes to building this team and identifying players that are going to get to the major leagues and succeed? Because you're in part of the reason you're where you are is because you do have a class of young players that you've graduated, Pasquantino and Witt and Melendez, that feel like a core, but there's nothing buttressing that right now. There's not like a big group of position players at AAA beating down the door right now. Like maybe Nick Lofton is a big leaguer, maybe Tylor Gentry is a big leaguer, but like where are the future all-stars? Where are the top 100 guys in this organization? Like Witt was, like Melendez was. They're not there right now. So when do you start building that back up? Because it's one thing to have the Royals had like a top 10 farm system in baseball, I think, or a really well-regarded farm system going into last season.
Yeah.
Because you had Witt as a consensus top 3 prospect in baseball. And you had Pasquantino shooting up the charts. And you had Melendez coming off of, I think it was a 40 homer season. Nick Prado, who's kind of a forgotten man right now, he's getting an opportunity. He's hitting over 300 in a small sample size so far. It's good that he's getting that opportunity. We don't want to forget about him because there's still something potentially in his bat too. Just not a corner outfielder. But what's behind that? And nothing right now. So you go from being a well-regarded farm system to being a farm system that most people put in the bottom 10 of their organizational rankings. How do you keep the talent pipeline flowing? Is J.J. Picollo the right person to spearhead keeping that talent pipeline flowing? That's who I have the question about. And he's only been the GM for 1 month of a major league season. And obviously, it's going to depend on what kind of resources he gets from ownership and all of that as well. But I think that the questions that need to be asked are more about how this team is going to be put together, more so than how they're being managed or how they're being coached.
I saw a blog post today. This is over at prospectdigest.com that made the argument for Frank Mazzucato being a top 100 prospect. Like, that's cool. Like, all right, that's the closest thing you've got to one. He is still a long way away from playing in the majors. Long way away. And I mean, that's what you can cling to right now. And that's why I think it's a totally fair and appropriate question to say, what is J.J. Picollo going to do differently? How is his philosophy when it comes to team building and roster building and system building different than Dayton Moore? All important questions. But as we stand right now, I'm I don't want to say I'm giving him a pass because that sounds almost too lenient, but I'm kind of giving him a pass. Dayton Moore, and I know he's gone, and I know this is beating a dead horse. I understand. But, like, he left them with nothing. Like, nothing at all. There's not even, like, a player on the major league roster right now who you could theoretically say, dang, like, that's our one good player who's a veteran. Let's move him for prospects. Yeah, it's going to make us worse in the short term, but we can maybe add, 2 or 3 top 100 guys who are in double or triple A, who can maybe be that next wave, who can be the bridge group of major league caliber prospects who will then bridge us to that next group that's in low or high A right now that's still 5 years away. You don't have that. Anyone trading for Salvi? And are the Royals going to trade Salvi? No. And is anyone going to give up that kind of prospect for him right now? I don't know. I don't know that could happen. You don't have any of those dudes. Like, if you traded Hunter Dozier, you'd get back, like,
a washing machine.
Like, double bubble. Like, that's all you're getting back for him at this point. So you're in just such a hard spot. And it's going to take, it is going to take, like, expansion levels of system building, I think, for JJ Picollo to get this farm system back to where it needs to be to start a pipeline of competition into the major leagues.
And look, it doesn't mean that there's nothing to be optimistic about in the low minors for the Royals. You mentioned Mazzucato. Ben Cadurna had a really good year last year. He's a local kid. There are some potential pieces, but there are not enough of them. That's the thing about why it worked in 2011. There were so damn many of them. There were so many of them that you could go ahead and trade some of those pieces when the time came to go get James Shields, or to go get Johnny Cueto and Ben Zobrist at the trade deadline. That's the kind of volume you need, that you can make a trade like that to go get an established big league player and not lose any sleep over trading Brandon Finnegan and Cody Reed and whoever else it was that went to Cincinnati. The fact that none of those guys panned out make the trade look even better.
Yeah.
None of those guys panned out and flags fly forever. But you do have to build the entire organization. And yeah, there's some big shiny diamonds that I think are going to be good big league players. I'm still a believer in the upside for Melendez, and I think there's some upside there. And I'm still a big Bobby Witt Jr. believer. 23 years old, he's been a league average hitter since he started as a big leaguer, and he's still learning. Like, there is room for growth with him. And I big Vinny fan, obviously, but has to be more behind that. Otherwise, it's not really a wave. It's just kind of what's like the light wave that comes on the beach. Just a little trickle of water that brings the seaweed with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a word for it, but it's not a real wave.
No, I know what you mean.
And the Royals need some waves.
We have to get to a timeout. This has been a long opening statement. Good stuff, but I could point to so many different things that are, wow, if they had done this, imagine if they had traded, just as an example, Whit Merrifield when he actually had value. Like, they could have added, there might be 1 or 2 guys in AAA who, all right, that we've got a real center fielder. I know Drew Waters is hurt, but there could have been so many things that were done in the last 6 years they just didn't do. We have to get to a timeout. We went long right there. We'll come right back. We've got some One Gotta Go to play on this Wednesday afternoon. Plus, Kansas State has a new transfer commit, and he's one of the best players who was in the portal this year. We'll talk about Tyler Perry later this hour here on 580 Sports Talk.
ugly. You're disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
Well, gotta go.
Let's play some One Gotta Go, shall we, on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. It's a simple game. We'll give each other 4 options for a specific category or question, and we've got to pick which one's got to go. I'm going to give you 4 of the top 6 draft picks this year in the NFL draft. I'm not going to give you Anthony Richardson because I know you liked him as the best quarterback in this class.
Yes.
And I'm not going to give you your team's pick at number 5, Devin Witherspoon.
Entirely
I know you like
fair.
that pick. Number 1 overall, Bryce Young to the Panthers. The Texans had 2 and 3 because of a trade. They get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. And then 6th, Paris Johnson Jr., who I thought was the best offensive tackle, just pure offensive tackle in the class. He ends up with the Arizona Cardinals. So considering their future prospects, considering where they landed, immediate impact, who their coach is, all of that, one's got to go. Who are you feeling the least from those 4 top prospects?
That's a good one. It's either Stroud or Paris Johnson to me. It's either of those two because I thought that Young was the second best quarterback clearly in the class, and I felt like Will Anderson was probably the best defensive player in the class. I'll say Paris Johnson Jr. A lot of people didn't love that pick for Arizona, considering like the value of it. Like they had traded back and then they went right back up to number 6 to go get him when they might have been able to get him at 12. There wasn't really that run on offensive linemen that I think people expected. So, for value's sake, that might be the pick. That, and I think that there are a lot of problems that the Cardinals had that they might have wished they had addressed before they addressed, like offensive line's a problem for them too. They're very talent deficient. They couldn't really make a wrong pick, but they might wish they had taken Jalen Carter.
When they traded back to 12, still on the board, they could have had, so the Bears took a tackle at 10, Darnell Wright, and the Titans took Peter Skoronski at 11, who a lot of folks think is going to end up at guard, but could theoretically be a tackle. He was a very good one at Northwestern. You could have ended up with one of those 3 guys at 12. That's a pretty good spot to be in, honestly, whether it's Johnson or it's one of those other 2 guys. I think I'm with you on going with Paris Johnson there. I thought Bryce Young was best quarterback in the class. Stroud, I think, is interesting because in terms of the physique, in terms of the physical gifts, in terms of the accuracy, the folks who dive really deep into, how on target and in window are his throws in the short, the intermediate, and the deep windows. Derek Klassen from the New York Times, among other places, has written about that. Ben Solak at The Ringer wrote about that. They thought he was the most accurate of any of the quarterbacks. And while helmet scouting, I think, is usually not a great way to go about addressing the draft, there is something to be said for Ohio State's offense is very quarterback friendly. Ryan Day runs an extremely quarterback friendly system in a similar way to Urban Meyer running a very quarterback friendly system, although there were 2 different kinds of quarterbacks. It was the big burly athlete versus these dudes who have this pinpoint accuracy and are good athletes, but don't have to read a whole lot. They're very simple to break down, and where your routes are always going to be. Does that work against C.J. Stroud? I don't know. I think it's an interesting situation. Houston's going to look a lot different this coming year. Wide receiver talent there, not great. But I think for me, it's Johnson because I don't know what Arizona is going to look like going forward. And I just think they had way too many holes. Like, did you really need to give up extra prospects, then move, or draft picks to then move back up?
Yeah, like if they drafted Paris Johnson at 12, hey, great pick. The fact that they moved up 6 slots and gave up what they gave up to go get the player, yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, they're going to be awful this year, and I just don't know what their future looks like. Like, if they're really terrible, what is their plan with Tylor? I know they gave him the big contract, but I just don't know what their philosophy is as an organization. I'm the most confident about Will Anderson because he is going to play for D'Amico Ryans. And D'Amico Ryans going into this job was a top 5, if not top 3 defensive coordinator in the NFL. And those teams in San Francisco, not only were they great, but they had tons of great talent that was made even better. And if I'm him, I say, hey, you saw what Nick Bosa did for me? Guess what you're going to do for me? Even more. I think he is the most rock solid of them all. Bryce Young just a hair behind him.
For my one gotta go today, I'm going to give you 4 of the most common kinds of sports wagers. And I'm telling you, the one that's got to go, you can never make ever again. The
Okay.
money line bet, the point spread, or puck line or run line, whichever you prefer, whatever sport you're talking about, the prop bet, or the futures bet.
Which one can I never make again? Part of me, but not the total. The total's not in there.
The total is
over-under's
not in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I'll leave the total out of this.
Honestly, if it had been, I might have picked that. I hate betting overs and unders. I do not like it at all. I would say probably, I would say the futures bet. That's right. I mean, I'm not betting like pro gambler money. Like I'm not tying up $10,000 in, Patrick Mahomes to win MVP.
Right. They are the ones where you can really make a nice profit.
They are.
If you hit on a futures bet, but it ties up your bankroll.
It really does. Now, as someone who bet Aaron Rodgers to win NFL MVP the night of the first round in 2020, those have been very good to me at times.
Okay.
That did very well for me. But yeah, I would probably go with the future. I mean, it's just so hard to predict sometimes. Clayton on YouTube, he says the prop has to go. I kind of like a good prop. I hit on a couple of NBA props the last couple of nights.
Yeah,
I've been feeling those.
Props can be fun. I'm on a big losing streak when it comes to those, though. Like I don't bet a lot of NBA. I don't bet a lot of MLB. I don't know why. I watch them both. I just I've been after my glorious Masters performance, I wanted to take a little vacation.
Fair.
And have done that and have kept play to a minimum of late.
You darn well could have taken literally a vacation with how well you did.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Yeah, I would. So which one are you knocking out?
I'd probably knock out the futures too. Just, if I had like pro gambler bankroll, then it'd be nothing to tie up a good chunk of your bankroll on a futures bet. But since I do not have that kind of bankroll,
I would you prefer to place a lot of smaller bets or just a couple bigger ones?
The smaller bet, I like the smaller bets because then you've got like a lot to follow. And it feels good to win.
I know a lot of pros say stick to 1 to 3 a day and just make really good picks and bet a little bit more on those. I'd rather, like on a college football Saturday, I'd probably bet over the course of a day like a couple $100, but it's on like 25 different games. Like it's just all small everywhere. It's fun. Why else would I watch like a Bowling Green game?
That's just true.
Exactly. We're going to take a quick break. Kansas State basketball just added a big name transfer yesterday. What does it mean for Jerome Tang and the Cats? We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. Finishing up the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, Brendan and Dan here with you. K-State landed a big-time basketball transfer commitment yesterday. Tylor Perry. We've talked about that name plenty on the show, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later with Tim Fitzgerald in our Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Conference USA Player of the Year, had a huge NIT run for North Texas this past season. 17.3 points a game his last year at North Texas. Just over 2 assists a game. I think it was 2.1 this year, maybe 2.2. Shot 41% from 3, shot 87% at the free throw line. This was, according to The Athletic, entering the week, the second best player remaining in the transfer portal. Number 1 being Hunter Dickinson, who KU is going after. I think right now, given who we know is on the roster, who I know a couple guys are testing the draft, and who K-State could still go after, if you said right now, who is K-State's best player going to be next year, I would tell you it's Tylor Perry. I know he's not big. He is a hooper. He can score at every single level. He's quick. He's got good hands defensively. I love his game, and I think he's going to be K-State's best player next year.
41% from 3 is no joke, especially when you are 5'11" and you're responsible for getting a lot of your own threes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you always felt pretty good about Marquise Noel making a 3 when he would pull up for one, or he'd create his own shot, or he'd pull up from outside the Riley County line and shoot a 3. And he made a lot of those, but he was only a 34% 3-point shooter on the year last year. 41% is like, you can't leave him open. 41% is you have to go guard him out there at all times. You can't forget about him. And as you mentioned, he's good enough to then blow by and get to the rim and finish at the free throw line. 87% from the free throw line, no joke either. So this is a player who is capable offensively of replacing the big offensive load that he's going to need to fill with K-State losing their 2 leading scorers and All-Americans from last year. Somebody's got to score the basketball. Here's somebody who can score the ball, and he can score it for himself, or he can create it for others. He's also played in big games, as you mentioned. North Texas was the Conference USA champions, I believe, this year. Regular season champs.
I believe you are correct.
I think they were the regular season champs. I know they won the NIT, so he's played in tournament games. He's played in that kind of, pressure. He's also played in a system under Grant McCaslin, the former North Texas coach, new Texas Tech coach. It was very slow and deliberate and in control. And I think that succeeding in that structure sometimes can tell you a lot about, a player willing to be patient, a player who is willing to let the game come to them, and should be more than capable of playing a more up-tempo style that Kansas State favors. They like to get out and run in transition. I'm sure he'll be fired up to go get out and do that. I'm sure that's more fun than playing the way that those North Texas teams seem to like to play, where it was first to 50 wins a lot of nights. So I really like the fit, and I like the skill set, and I think it's exactly what Kansas State needs. And it may not be as splashy as like getting Max Asmus out of the portal would have been, because Max Asmus, I guess, a little more well-known. But this is a player who is going to help K-State a lot. I kind of flinched a little bit when you said at first he will be their best player. I think Naquan Tomlin can make a big leap next year. But the more I thought about it, ball handling guard who can shoot 41% from 3 is a pretty damn good player.
I had 2 bold takes, I think, when it came to Tylor Perry, because I agree. I put this on Twitter last night. I think Tomlin's ceiling still higher than anyone, because he's big. We've seen the traits. He's still so new to playing the game of basketball. I think his ceiling is still crazy, crazy high. But in terms of, who do you trust right now to be your best player? I would say it's Perry. I also, and this is a little more subjective even, I think this is a bigger addition than even getting the recruitment from David Castillo was a couple weeks ago. That's a big deal. That's a high schooler. High school recruiting, that's, still the traditional kind of recruiting versus the portal stuff. And you want to appeal to the high school guys, to the AAU guys. Hey, if you're a 5-star commit, you don't just have to go to Kansas. You don't just have to go to Duke or, Kentucky or whoever else. You can come to Kansas State, find success, and we're going to build a pipeline there. That was huge, obviously. Tylor Perry, we already know, is a good, if not great, college basketball player. Even the 5 stars coming out of high school, sometimes they flop. or sometimes it's not a great fit, or one thing could go wrong, another thing could go wrong. It could be any number of things. We already know what Tylor Perry is in college. And even if he's playing tougher competition in the Big 12, he's still a really darn good player. And Conference USA was good last year. CJ Moore talked to us about that. There's an argument they should have had at least 3 tournament teams.
They had the winner of the NIT.
Mhm.
They had the winner of the CBI.
The runner-up in the NIT.
They also had the runner-up in the NIT, and they had a Final Four team.
Yeah, you could have made an argument for at least 3 of those teams to be in the NCAA tournament. And honestly, had Charlotte played a little better at the end of the year, maybe them too. I think the fact that you have a player who's already that good at the college level and has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Let's not forget that part. This is not a 1-year rental. This is a guy who's going to spend 2 years, very Marquise Noel-like. He's going to get 2 years in Manhattan. That is a big deal, a really big deal, because you've got continuity for 23, 24, and for 24, 25. I think this is absolutely massive for K-State. That is a really good player. And you don't just want to be the small guy school, but if you can establish, hey, if you are maybe undersized, but you've got handles, you can shoot, and you've got good floor vision, we'll find a spot for you, and we'll find a way for you to succeed. That's a pretty good spot to be in if you can end up landing guys like this or like Marquise Noel, even though I understand that was a different regime that brought Noel in. We'll talk more about the Tylor Perry edition coming up next hour when Tim Fitzgerald joins us for our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Also next hour, we'll take a look at some lingering thoughts from the draft and how the Chiefs influenced it. Plus, we've got our What Is Wrong With You. All that is coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk underway here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Appreciate you listening along today. We're with you until 6 o'clock when pregame coverage will begin for Royals baseball versus the Baltimore Orioles tonight. 6 o'clock pregame coverage, start time, 6:40 first pitch. It'll be Zach Greinke on the mound for the Royals tonight against, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle Gibson for the Baltimore Orioles. And again, that'll be on the Royals radio network tonight here on 580 WIBW. We'll preview that game coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. Here in this hour, we've got some NFL draft talk to get to and how the Chiefs impacted the draft strategies of maybe a few other teams around the NFL, or at least in the AFC. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You, sponsored as always by Top City Metal Supply. And Tim Fitzgerald will swing by bottom of the hour for our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We'll keep taking your texts. Our text line number is 785-272-9429. And you can hop into the comment section on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. Go subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all you guys who are watching along on the YouTube feed today. Is this a good time to bring up the biggest sports news story of the day? The expansion in the Australian Football League? Tasmania getting a team?
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say it was the Jets signing Randall Cobb to play with his buddy Aaron Rodgers.
No, but if you have ever in your life said something nice about Aaron Rodgers, congratulations on your one-year contract with the New York Jets. Because it's going to happen. Yeah, that was the most predictable of any of them, that Randall Cobb was going to get signed. Good for him. I'm happy for him. He's one of my all-time favorites. I love Randall Cobb. And look, when your best friend goes somewhere and has a lot of pull, there are perks that come with that. So there you go.
So that old Jay-Z line about Memphis Bleak, that he could be one hit away his whole career, but as long as I'm alive, he's a millionaire.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's a lot of Memphis Bleaks surrounding Aaron Rodgers.
I heard someone say, or I saw someone say, Aaron Rodgers is Adam Sandler. Post like 90s. He's just going to keep making movies, and they're going to be varying levels of consistency, but all of his friends are going to have jobs. Kevin James is going to have a job, just like Randall Cobb is going to have a job.
You know, they said LeBron was like that, but he never could pull it together where all of his buddies were on his team with him at once. Like, he could never get Melo and Chris Paul, like the whole Banana Boat gang. Like, that never quite worked out. But Aaron Rodgers,
despite his best efforts.
Yes. But Aaron Rodgers is going to make sure that his favorite wide receivers have jobs as long as they want to have jobs.
Yeah. Wes Anderson, also, if you're a movie buff, probably the same way. All of his
casting
movies,
all the same people in his movies. Yeah.
Every single movie, the exact same cast. It's like an anthology at this point. But hey, again, good job if you can have it. I'm not going to be shocked at all if Mercedes Lewis ends up signing with the Jets. Would not be surprised one bit. I kind of want him back in Green Bay, but would not be surprised if he went and followed Aaron Rodgers. No, we do not have to talk a whole lot of Tasmanian football on the show today, as much as I would love to do so.
Is their team nickname going to be the Devils?
That is the working theory, yes, that they will be the Devils.
They will sell so much merchandise.
So much merchandise. Also, then you can have a Demons versus Devils game during the season, because Melbourne is the Demons. The D's, if you will.
I guess you could have Demons and Devils in the same league. I mean, we have Red Sox and White Sox in Major League Baseball.
There's also Saints, so you can have like a real battle of good and evil going on.
Oh, fascinating.
Kind of an anti-hero thing. This has been Talking Footy on 580 Sports Talk. All right, let's get to American footy. The Kansas City Chiefs completed the NFL draft, obviously, this past week. You asked me an interesting question earlier today about how the Chiefs may... the Chiefs' existence in their current form may have informed other teams, specifically in the AFC and specifically with teams who are trying to win ASAP, may have informed how they should go about building their roster through the NFL draft. And I will let you lead this here, because you have in our notes two teams, and I'm curious to your rationale here, where you say you think the Chiefs informed their draft strategy specifically.
So I think really in the case of the Colts that you see the influence of what Patrick Mahomes is doing in this league and how successful the Chiefs have been since they've turned over the reins to Patrick Mahomes. The Colts picked 4th overall, and for weeks it was, we hear they like Will Levis. We hear they really loved having Will Levis work out for them. We hear Will Levis might be their guy. Or, maybe they'll take C.J. Stroud if he slips through picks 2 and 3. If Houston doesn't love C.J. Stroud, it turned out Houston liked him well enough to draft him number 2. But we didn't hear a lot of connection with Anthony Richardson and the Colts until the Colts took him at number 4 overall. And Chris Ballard, their general manager, obviously a former Chiefs front office employee, was interviewed after the draft and said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing here, of why not take the Grand Slam swing? Why not? Because in terms of the raw, like, college production, like if you did the blind taste test of what all 3 of the top 4 picks as quarterbacks did in college, you would rank Anthony Richardson a distant third.
Yeah.
A distant third behind the resumes of Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And even at times watching like the highlight reels of their college games, you would probably take Young and Stroud before you would take Anthony Richardson. But the consensus about Anthony Richardson is there have been very few, if any, athletes like him to play the quarterback position. And sometimes that goes left, right? Sometimes you draft the freak athlete at quarterback and it's Jake Locker.
Yeah.
The extenuating circumstances there, Locker really didn't love football like that, and probably never should have tried to play it professionally if he didn't have that kind of passion for it. And it was a waste of everyone's time, although at least he got paid handsomely for the privilege. But Anthony Richardson has the kind of athletic talent, like the build and the frame and the arm and the legs, that if it all comes together, it is much easier to see like the best version of Anthony Richardson, like the best possible, the top percentile outcome for Anthony Richardson looking like the best quarterback in the league. And I don't know you can say that about Bryce Young, who's 5'9". And I don't know if you could say that about CJ Stroud, but you can say that about Anthony Richardson, that if it all clicks, then he is elite upper echelon quarterback. And so Indianapolis is taking that Grand Slam swing because of the understanding that right now, the guy winning all the championships is the best athlete on the field, Patrick Mahomes. And he may not look it. He might run. I forget who it was. I think it was Danny Kelly of the Ringer. He may run like he's trying not to spill his beer. He may not be like sprint fast. He got good game speed. He's got getting away from the bad guy's speed, but he doesn't necessarily have like that great like 40 time on paper like an Anthony Richardson might. But he's the best player on the field. He's the most athletic guy. He does the most. And if you don't have that quarterback, how are you going to win anything in the AFC? If you don't have a quarterback that can stand up to Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, physically, athletically, before you get to the ability, how are you going to win anything in the AFC? And I think Houston's a team that skipped out on drafting a quarterback last year. Took a pass on all those guys. Couldn't do that again this year, but also had to make sure that they fortified that defensive side of the ball. And so they moved back up to number 3. They had 2 top 12 picks, turned into 2 top 3 picks. And so they got the edge rusher, and they got the guy that they believe is going to be the quarterback that enters that echelon of quarterbacks. So to me, that's 2 AFC teams saying we have to have a quarterback that can potentially stand in the middle of the ring, trade blows with Patrick Mahomes. We can't play it safe. And I don't know that there was a safe quarterback pick in this draft. Like, I think there's some chances for some low floors based on Richardson's kind of anemic college production, based on Young's size, based on Stroud's inconsistency. Like, he was really good in some really big games.
Yeah.
But like, if you watched all of CJ Stroud, like there would be games last year where you watch Stroud go, what is he doing? What does he see? Who did he throw 4 picks against last year? Was it Purdue? Yeah, 4-pick game against somebody?
That is a good question.
3 or 4 picks? I'm not looking at his game log right now.
I will pull that up. Momentary stoppage. But yes, I know what game you're talking about.
Yeah, but there's a floor there for all of those guys. but there's also a substantial ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not like a high floor, low ceiling quarterback pick in this last draft. But you need that high ceiling because Mahomes doesn't have one.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't appear as a quarterback. And so if you're going to beat that guy, you better have somebody who's as good as that guy. And there aren't a whole lot of teams that can say they're close. There might be only one in the entire NFC that can say we've got that guy.
By the way, Stroud had a 2-interception game against Michigan.
He threw the 2 picks against me. He wasn't very good against Michigan.
No, he only threw 2 picks twice in college.
Okay.
The other time was against Nebraska in 2021.
So it wasn't a multi-pick game. It was a game where he just didn't complete a lot of passes. It was a real sloppy game and might have been weather related.
Often is when you get to Big Ten football. Yeah, he had a game. Okay, you might have been thinking against Rutgers.
Yes.
13 of 22 for 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 59% of his passes completed.
Yeah.
He also had a game against, also Northwestern. That was a weather game because it was rainy with like 50-mile-an-hour winds. He had 76 yards passing. So, yes, I watched at least that Northwestern game. I think I watched the Rutgers game, too. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about with the inconsistencies.
Yeah. So, like, there's floor there with those guys. But to me, the highest ceiling by far is Richardson. And so you have to have a quarterback that can hit that ceiling because you need to be as good as number 15 for the Chiefs if you are going to win anything. If you want to just be okay, then Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent next year. You employ him if you want. Or you can draft like the next guy who comes out of college and is a Mac Jones, where you feel like, okay, we're sacrificing ceiling for a bit of a higher floor here. And they might end up being wrong about just how high his floor was after all. But if you want to go and win like on a high level, you want to win championships, you have to have a quarterback who's going to be as good as Patrick Mahomes. And I think that now there is an understanding of that athleticism, you bet on the athleticism. If anything, this is not just a Patrick Mahomes lesson. This is a Jalen Hurts lesson.
Mm-hmm.
This is watching what Jalen Hurts has become in Philadelphia and thinking, well, we'll take a gamble on the athlete.
It's the what can't they be versus the what can they be argument, right? Because that's what the scout was on Patrick Mahomes. And some people were higher on him than others. You know, I go back to the tweet every single time I see Patrick Mahomes have a good game where I said he's going to be a superstar and he'll be the best player in the best quarterback in this class. Now, I didn't think he'd be the best player in the entire NFL, but I thought he was going to be good. But I thought he's going to need a year because it might be rough if you play him right away.
And he got the year.
And he did. And it worked out that it was under Andy Reid and behind Alex Smith. And it was the absolute perfect situation for Patrick Mahomes. And I think he would tell you the exact same thing. But this thing was Texas Tech quarterbacks, these spread, throw it all over, air raid quarterbacks. They can't do it. The quarterback-friendly system, yada, yada, yada. Their offenses are remedial in college. These guys never work out. Look at his head coach. Look at what Cliff Kingsbury did or didn't do in the NFL. He's got the big arm, but can he process? Can he throw it accurately? Does know what defenses will look like, etc. When in reality, in retrospect, should we have focused on that or should we have focused on, holy crap, look at these throws. Look at the windows he's throwing this into. Look at him against Oklahoma, run all the way from the pocket, arc around to the right sideline, throw across his body, and complete it for 45 yards in the best quarterback duel in college football history.
Because that's the argument, like that. Obviously, that's the argument for Richardson. But I think that's the argument for Stroud, too, is you can look at his body of work and say, yeah, there were times this was kind of underwhelming considering all the wide receiver talent he has to throw with, considering a very quarterback-friendly system at Ohio State. And the rejoinder was, did you see what he did to Georgia?
Yeah, best game of the year.
Did you see what he did to the best defense in the country in a national semifinal? Like, that's the rejoinder, right? Sometimes talk about what a guy does do. And if you believe in the ceiling, then that is the guy you take. And so I think that the mindset about quarterbacks was very clear. Now, Houston and Indianapolis had other problems on their roster. They didn't jump into the upper echelon of the AFC by drafting C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. They got a long ways to go. But if they do get there anytime soon, it'll be because those guys hit, and those guys hit big.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, too. Is it just in terms of class in general, what are you trying to hit on? Are you trying to hit on the traits and the expectation, or are you trying to hit on guys who can help us sooner rather than later? And I don't think either one is necessarily wrong. And certain teams have been more on the forefront of this than others. But if you go look at the guy who came up with relative athletic score, Kent Lee Platt, and he, at the end of the draft every year, puts out a graphic of here's what the Chiefs drafted, their positions, their colleges, and what their athletic scores were. It does it for every single team. And a lot of the best players are also really good athletes. That's kind of a no-duh situation. But more and more teams are taking guys who have traits, who are projected players. And that helps when you're already winning. The Packers have been a team that's been on the forefront of that for a long time. We're going to take guys who are great athletes who are going to turn into great football players. And more often than not, it's worked.
It used to be the spark scores.
Yeah.
The spark testing.
Score.
Yeah. And teams would favor guys. Oh, man, no mistake. Like Seattle used to love the spark scores.
Yeah. And the Chiefs now in a situation, they continue to win. They're in a spot right now where they've got a Super Bowl caliber roster. They can take the swings on, a Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who might not be a super contributor right away, but he's young. He's a very good athlete with room to physically grow and develop more. Take the swing on that. So there's a couple of different schools of thought you can employ here in terms of what kind of player do we want to go get. Contrast all of this and, the Colts point, for example. And I'm trying to remember, I need to pull up the Colts' entire draft class here because I want to make sure I'm not whiffing on
crazy athletes. Josh Downs, Blake Freeland,
yes.
Adibare.
And they have added in recent years as well. I think of Alec Pierce, who they took second round last year. One of the best athletes who has tested at the combine at wide receiver in quite some time. The tight end they took, Jelani Woods, the best tester of anyone at the combine last year.
Yeah.
They have continued to add pieces like that. Contrast that with a team like the Chargers, which took Quentin Johnston this year, first round, sensible pick. They need future receiver help. They have not done nearly as much in terms of the arms race, right? We used to talk about that in terms of how do you keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals did the best job of it. They had a great defensive coordinator, so if they didn't spend near quite as much capital on their defense, he could still make it happen there and could still turn that into an above-average defense while putting a ton of investment into their wide receivers. They already had Tylor Boyd, who's been a very solid player. They draft T. Higgins, who's been great. They draft Jamar Chase, who's been great. They even said, look, we know we got to fix the offensive line. It has been bad. We still want Jamar Chase. And Penei Sewell's been a really good player. He's been very good. They still said, weapons. We want weapons. We want to make sure that Joe Burrow always has someone to throw to. And if it's not a perfect throw, these guys are still going to make it happen and make it happen after the catch. And that's worked. That's worked very well. That's the way teams have been trying to keep up with the Chiefs. So maybe this is a new school of thought that even more than, well, we just have to score with them. And we also have to be able to put up 50 points. And we need these crazy receivers. Maybe now it's just, let's take the best athletes we have. Let's take all the home run swings. Because even if we miss on a few, it's kind of like gambling. We were talking about the futures bets earlier. Okay, you make 5 futures bets for NFL MVP at the start of the year. That's a lot, okay? Man, it may not be the wisest thing to do if you're at a casino. But you bet on 5 guys, and you miss on 4 of them. But you hit the longest shot of any of them, you made up all that money and a lot more.
Yes, you did.
So if the Colts don't hit, if Josh Downs doesn't end up being a guy, if Alec Pierce from last year only ends up ever being like a solid number 2 guy, you've still got the quarterback. If you hit on that guy, it's all going to work out because the Chiefs are the same way, and they're proving that now. Last year, they won with a wide receiver group where their best wide receiver was Juju Smith-Schuster. Nice player. Good year. That's not exactly, the greatest receiving core of all time. So maybe this is more about just you take as many swings with the super athletes as possible and hope you hit on the best one.
And a real quick point, too, about the 2 teams that feel like they're closest to the Chiefs right now in the AFC, which are the Bengals and the Bills. They took guys in the 20s where there were some red flags. Like there was a reason that Dalton Kincaid slipped, and there was a reason that Miles Murphy slipped to the Bills and the Bengals, respectively. And both of those teams Bill said, we don't care. That dude makes plays after the catch. He could be our version of Travis Kelce. Kelce's been kicking our butt the last 3-4 years. Let's try and get our own version. I don't care that he's 24. I don't care there's an injury history. Let's focus on what he is. The Bengals, we got to put more pressure. We couldn't chase down Patrick Mahomes on the most critical play of the game, and Joseph Osai shoved him while he was a yard out of bounds. We got somebody a little faster chasing him down. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe Butker misses that kick. Maybe we win in overtime and go back to the Super Bowl. Let's go get a freak athlete. I don't care why he slipped on anybody else's draft board. Let's go get the dude. Let's go get a blue chip athlete. Gambling on that upside, gambling on those traits, as you put it. That's what teams are doing now because they understand that the outlier in the NFL right now wears number 15 and plays for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Do you know what Patrick Mahomes' RAS was?
I do not.
He was an 8.24 out of 10. That is,
for a quarterback, pretty exceptional.
Yeah, that qualifies as great. Anything, and this is all found, by the way, if you want to dive into this yourself, RAS.football. You can search for any player since 1987 who's gone through the draft. They have a score right there. In case you're curious, by the way, Joe Burrow did not participate at the combine, so he does not have an RAS score, nor did he have a pro day for that matter. Let's get to a quick timeout. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Our winner for the week so far, it's the par 4 punchers, the gentlemen who were golfing down in Florida. One group in front was golfing really slowly, so the group from behind got pretty PO'd at them. And then they started a fight. There was some shoving. There was tackling in the trees. There were some really embarrassing flailing kicks from one middle-aged gentleman to another. It is a very funny video, and they are our current winners of the week. Before we get to today's news stories, I want to remind you that What Is Wrong With You is sponsored by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply is on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. For my story today, Dan, We are going down to the Villages in Florida, where a romantic rival has been sentenced after defecating on the vehicle of a business executive in the Villages.
Oh, man.
30-year-old Jeremy Powell, who's got a bit of a rap sheet, lives in the village of Sable Chase, pleaded no contest this week in Sumter County, Florida, to a charge of criminal mischief. He has been placed on probation for 1 year and has to perform 40 hours of community service, hopefully scrubbing toilets for the irony. An officer had been called all the way back on the morning of February 13th to the Oxford Oaks home of Michael Hoopfer, who is the director of accounting at the village's commercial property management. The former community development supervisor had walked out to his driveway that morning and discovered that the passenger side windshield wiper of his car had been broken off. Plus, there were scratches on the doors and there was poop on the roof of the vehicle.
God, good morning to you.
Yeah, Hoopfer then reviewed his home surveillance footage. I'm sure this gentleman did not know that was involved here. And he saw a man scratching the vehicle, climbing on top of it, and, quote, defecating on the roof, according to the arrest report. Hoopfer identified the man as Powell, who he knew from work. It appeared that the damage had taken place at about 10:30 p.m. Super Bowl Sunday. When questioned by police, Hoopfer then theorized that Powell may have been provoked to commit the vandalism, quote, over a girl. We do not have any further details about that, but that seems incredibly important to note. Who is this girl? Who was she dating first? Or maybe, more importantly, who was she dating second? Do not have further details about that. Under closer inspection of the home security video, the officer noted the man was wearing a white t-shirt and dark pants. He kicked the driver's side mirror and scratched the doors before climbing onto the roof, dropping his pants, and pooping. He then jumped back to the ground, again scratched the driver's side door of the vehicle. The officer noted that the man captured on surveillance had a towering presence, which matched the 6 feet and 5 inches listed on Powell's driver's license.
Funny note here that our pooper here used to work as the leasing agent at the Brownwood Lofts.
Yeah,
that's a funny note to me. Great point from the text line from the 785. How do you plead no contest? You either pooped or you didn't.
Right.
And they got you on film, man.
I feel like at some
You're
point,
on game tape doing this.
Yeah, just plead guilty and just take whatever the deal is that they offer you. This is bad. This is, by the way, a transplant Florida man. He's originally from Illinois, from Wakanda, Illinois.
Florida infects all of us.
It really does.
The longer you stay. Sometimes literally. Anyhow, we got double Florida story today.
All right.
And we've got a story that hews very closely to our current weekly champion.
Oh.
We are going to Lady Lake, Florida, where a 52-year-old Lake County man was arrested on allegations of attacking another man with a golf club over an argument about walking on the course. The victim and his wife were walking on the Harbor Hills Country Club golf course path in Lady Lake when Eddie Orobitgi, that's Orobitg. I don't know if there's a silent letter in there somewhere. I'm wondering if the G might be silent.
Maybe the T?
Orobig? Eddie-O, we're going to call him.
All
Not
right.
Edward Olivares of the Royals, who I sometimes call that. But Eddie-O, who's playing golf with his son, told the pair they were not supposed to walk on the path because it is, quote, intended for golf carts, and it is a rule of the golf course. Golf people can be such sticklers for rules. According to an arrest affidavit, the victim said an argument began, and Eddie-O spit in his face. He then struck the victim's leg with a golf club, leading to a physical altercation. The victim said Eddie-O struck him again with the golf club, this time on the side of his head from behind. The man told deputies he tried to defend himself by striking Eddie-O with his water bottle. Eddie-O continued to strike the man several times. The victim told deputies he believed his ribs were broken. Deputies said the victim's body and clothes were covered in what appeared to be blood, and the man had several cuts on his body, including an earlobe that was ripped. The man was taken to hospital for potential broken ribs, a possible traumatic brain injury, and potentially a broken jaw. Eddie-O was arrested and taken to the Lake County Jail on charges of aggravated battery, according to the affidavit.
Just no need for this, man.
Yeah, I don't understand. Just out enjoying a nice walk on a path. Like, I get that it's a little, like, I would be a little thrown, I suppose, if I just saw, like, random people walking on the golf course while I'm trying to play around. But then it would be, those people are out for a walk. All right, moving on. Let me hit this sand wedge. Like, keep it moving.
Yeah, who cares? Like, so what, dude? Who cares? Get over it. That's how I view a lot of life.
Like they're not holding you up. They're not keeping you from playing through.
No, call the clubhouse and let them deal with it, right? Like call security. I don't know, do something else. Don't attack them. That sucks. That wins for today. Because I need more details about the other story. If I knew exactly where this romantic rivalry stemmed from, I might have gone with the other story. But this one wins for me today. Just call someone.
Yeah.
It's not impacting your life at all. Leave them alone. So what if they're breaking the rules? Someone else can stop them.
No need to hit a dude with your Callaway Big Bertha.
No. Ooh, that would hurt. That would hurt really badly. Does that beat our other golf fighting story?
Man, it is a tight one, but I have to go with the dudes who just fought over slow play, especially because that's in the news right now. Slow play, like it's a big topic in like real golf, but I'm pretty sure that like Patrick Cantlay isn't going to fight Brooks Koepka the next time they run into each other. Like these old men did.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, we're going to keep our same winner, the par 4 punchers. They advance on again today in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Tim Fitzgerald's up next on 580 Sports Talk.
You'd rather be
dang day.
I'm not a big fan of sticky. What a great day to be a Wildcat.
It's a big Kansas State victory.
Tim Fitzgerald is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz, and of course, all of his and his crew's great work covering K-State at GoPowerCat.com. He joins us on Wednesdays, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. What's going on, Fitz?
Just enjoying mostly a day off. I finished our podcast, put it in the can for the morning, and now I'm talking to two friends on the phone.
Love to hear that. Well, how about the Kansas State basketball team? We'll get to some football draft stuff here in a few minutes. But I wanted to start with Tylor Perry, the big addition yesterday out of the transfer portal, made his announcement about 8:30 p.m. Your crew has been all over this recruitment from the very beginning. That was rated, I believe, by The Athletic as the number 2 best player remaining in the transfer portal, which is a really good get. He's got 2 years of eligibility, awesome three-point shooter, great scorer overall. Just initially, Fitz, your thoughts on the player and the fit for K-State?
Really solid. This does not fully address their need at point guard. I think they're still looking for more of a traditional creator. I just said this on the podcast. Let me steal from myself. I feel like this kind of replaces Desi Sills as much as anyone. This is kind of where he gets plugged in. They went all in on Max Asmus and fell short, and so they're back in the process. But what are we? We're still a week out or more from when the portal closes, so more guys will go in. We're seeing good players go in still, so there's going to be options out there. They certainly want a point guard. They want a mobile big man to get into the mix up front, and we'll see where that lands them.
In terms of what you have seen from his game, and I know you just mentioned more of a replacement for Desi Sills maybe than Marquise Noel, which I think is the name that a lot of people really, associate Tylor Perry with coming into the program. What is the thing that stands out to you the most about his game? Is it the shooting? Is it the ability to create? Is it the ball handling, specifically the threes? What really stands out to you the most about Perry?
One of the things that someone shared with me is he's a bulldog. I mean, he's just fierce. And that might be a big reason why he's played for a junior college national champion and an NIT champion. Pretty sure this means K-State's going to win a national title in basketball too. But he's just fierce. He's a competitor. And that's exactly what Jerome Tang and his coaching staff are always looking for. Sure, the ability to share the ball, to create off the bounce, to shoot three-pointers, all plays into it. At the end of the day, though, they want someone that knows how to win. He said that over and over. They want people that come from winning programs and that will get after it, really be competitive at this level.
I said earlier when we were talking about this edition that I thought you could at least argue, and I think I believe this, that this is even bigger than getting the Castillo commitment a couple weeks ago. Now, I know David Castillo, 5-star prospect, or at least a very high 4-star. You want to be able to tell high school kids, hey, you don't just have to go to KU or to Duke or to Kentucky if you're a 5-star. We will have you here, and you're going to make a big impact here. Obviously, that's huge going forward. But to get a guy who we already know is a good, if not great, college player who you get for multiple years, to me, that is an even bigger deal, at least in the short term. Do you feel like that's a fairly smart take, or is that an off take?
No, I'm with you on the short term. If you track Jerome Tang closely, he wants experienced guards. And the only way to do that right now, is to get into the transfer portal and find it. Because he's only going to be in his second recruiting class, and really his first full recruiting class as Kansas State coach. So if you look at the young guys coming into the program, he wants them to be juniors and seniors eventually. And until then, we're going to see them into the portal. I think they'll lessen the amount of portal usage they have, maybe, as they progress. But they just want to stay veteran in the backcourt because it's hard to compete with young guards. I mean, we saw it at Baylor. They had some youth at guard, and they just weren't quite what they have been in the past. And so that's what he's going to do. He's going to continue to hit the portal to find these guys. And he'll bring in young guys, and we'll see those young guys become older. And if they don't have a lot of attrition outgoing with the transfer portal, I think we'll see the portal usage become more specific to, we need this part for this season. And right now, they're seriously just mostly looking for experience.
Our guest joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. He joins us every week here on the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. Check out him and his staff's great work there. And you can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, Brendan and I were talking about this earlier. Is there a chance Tylor Perry ends up the best player on K-State's team next year?
Maybe. I mean, I like him a lot, but I think they've still got some. I feel like they've still got some chips to play. I always keep going back to the postseason press conference in which Jerome Tang said, really good players are going to go in on the last day of the portal. And it just felt like he knew, not just that vaguely good players would, that we're thinking this guy and that guy are going to go in. And, that might come from AAU coaches or whatever. I think they've got their sights set on some really good basketball players. And I'll be very intrigued to see where this goes. The radical change from this year, from last year, is that last year we were like, what are they doing? When are they going to get some dudes? And now you're kind of like, they'll get some guys. They're gonna find the right guys. Might be August. That'll be okay. It's so funny. It's like, it's okay. And I think we'll see some really impressive additions, I think, as we go forward.
Switching gears to football, successful weekend in the NFL draft. 4 K-State football players get drafted, and in a neat twist, all 4 of them get to go play for their hometown teams. Felix Anudike-Uzomah with the Chiefs, Julius Brents to the Colts, Josh Hayes to the Buccaneers, and Deuce Vaughn to the Cowboys. Who are you most excited to see at the next level, Fitz, among those 4 Wildcats who got drafted?
Well, as a Chiefs fan, the answer is probably Felix, but I want to see Deuce prove people wrong again, because that's all he's ever done is shown that he can do it at this level and this level, and here we are at the highest level. Let me turn the table on you two. We got a great question on our podcast. Who do you think of those 4 will have the most successful NFL career?
I am going to give you Julius Brents because I think I think it might take a little while for Felix to be assimilated, I guess, into the Chiefs' game plan. Not that I don't think he's going to be a good player. I do. I think they might want him to bulk up a little bit. They are kind of deep now at defensive end, at least at the start of his career. I think Deuce is going to have a role, although it might be at least somewhat niche for a while. Admittedly, I don't know exactly what the defensive backfield is going to look like for Tampa Bay going forward. I think Julius Brents could start for day one for Indy. He is so freaking long. I think it was Tom Fernelli from CBS Sports. In fact, it definitely was, who said that he's 5 miles long. And he is. And he played zone in college at Iowa. He's got man experience, obviously, from K-State. He was awesome in big games. I think right away, if you were just saying who's going to be the most impactful guy, I think I would go with Brents.
I think he's my short-term answer, but my long-term answer, I think, is Felix Anudike-Uzomah, because he enters the NFL as a 21-year-old who's going to get to play the defensive end role that he's meant to play, which is in a 4-3. Instead of being one of 3 down linemen like he was at Kansas State, he's going to be one of 4 down linemen. And I think his room for growth with Joe Cullen and Steve Spagnuolo instructing him, and the youth that he has coming into the league, I think over the long haul, Felix Anudike-Uzomah is going to be the choice.
Yeah, interesting. I also predicted Julius would start from day one, but my pick was Deuce Vaughn, just because I can see him having a career close to Darren Sproles. It lasts a long time because he doesn't take the wear and tear of a frontline running back, but he has such an impact in the game coming out of the backfield or as a receiver or as a returner. I think if he finds the right places like Darren Sproles did, the coaches will use him brilliantly, and because of his limited usage, he'll go a long way.
I want to ask you too, Fitz, about Josh Hayes, because we talked a lot about K-State guys that might get drafted or might be UDFAs, like Malik Knowles didn't end up getting drafted, but he got a UDFA offer. A couple other guys, Shawnee Heights' own Ty Zentner with the Eagles, might have a chance to win their punter job. But Josh Hayes was not a guy we talked a whole great deal about. He ends up going in the 6th round of the Buccaneers. How neat a surprise was that to see somebody a little bit off the radar hear their name called from Kansas State?
Actually, I remember taking the question. I don't know what it was on, a podcast or maybe Sirius XM Big 12 this morning, but I picked Josh as the guy that might sneak into the draft because people weren't talking about him. And I knew from some guys I talked to that he had a good influence, made an impression on some people. And one of those was Tampa. And they feel like he could slide in at the nickel from day one. Because of his ability to be a corner and a safety. Again, that kind of experience in the different types of defenses and different roles that Julius Brents has, he's got it positionally. And I'm just fascinated. He could be a guy that hangs around in the league for a long time too. We've seen a lot of undersized by NFL standards K-State defensive backs have good careers in the league, and it's ongoing with DJ Reed right now.
Chatting with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can go to GoPowerCat.com, check out all of his crew's fantastic work covering K-State, and you can follow Fitz on Twitter as well, at Life of Fitz. Right now, Fitz, Cooper Beebe or the field? Who is the next highest draft pick currently on the K-State roster?
God, that's a good one. I think Ben Sinnott might end up being
I
up
love
there.
that.
I don't know if that's
I love that.
Next year. Guys, I think Will Howard's an NFL quarterback. Yeah, I mean, unless he has a disastrous senior season, I think he's going to be one of those guys people are like, really? But I just think he's more of a NFL type of guy, and maybe the NFL is changing unfairly to him to more of the dual threat guys we're seeing now. But there's other guys on this roster that could really end up in the league. We talked about eventually down the line Jacob Parrish, young guy that came in and played as a true freshman, but is so damn fast that you can't deny he can cover people. So I wish I could answer with one of the receivers, but I don't see that happening. And there's plenty of opportunities available in Manhattan, Kansas if the right guy wants to show up.
In terms of guys and they're leaving the program, not for the draft, but just leaving outright, a handful of guys entering the portal over the last week or so. I mean, that's just college football nowadays. There's attrition and guys leave for, whatever reason. They might like the school, but they want to play a little bit more, or maybe, coach clash, whatever it might end up being. Any of the guys really stand out to you who entered the portal? The one that jumped out to me, just because I remember his recruitment, was Gavin Forsha, but I know he was fairly low down the depth chart. Anyone really jump out to you who entered the portal this last week?
Now, the young tackle Clem has such good football DNA. I'm told it caught everyone off guard. But you don't know what's going on with young people. It's just the cost of doing business now. They could leave because of where they are on the depth chart, their relationship with a coach, or maybe they broke up with their girlfriend. You just don't know what's going on with some of these kids. But you're going to lose backups every year. When you're losing frontline guys, time to talk. But, you come out of spring football and some guys can just tell, well, I thought I was going to be starting, and I actually slid down the depth chart because these guys they brought in are really good. That's healthy for your football program. If you can recruit over the guys you have and improve your team, and those guys leave, you have an opportunity to replicate that process and get someone even better the next year. That's how you climb the charts. So it's really, just all part of the business now. K-State needed some scholarships freed up to get into the transfer portal for other positions. And this has done it. And we'll see who they take out of the portal and what kind of success they have on the football front.
Tim Fitzgerald is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Head to GoPowerCat for all the best coverage of K-State athletics. Go follow Fitz as well on Twitter, at Life of Fitz. He joins us every Wednesday for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Fitz, what are we going to hear on the podcast coming out tomorrow morning?
We had a really interesting discussion about, one of our main posters made a comparison of Terrence Newman and Felix Anudike-Uzomah as basically unrecruited, prospects coming in for their athleticism that within 3-4 years, became first-round picks. Terrence was more dramatic because he was in the top 10. And he'd just been a track star at Spine Central that messed around with football. So that's pretty good stuff. And we got into the meaning and will K-State always be a developmental program, or will they eventually be able to recruit the 4- and 5-star guys? This is a really good discussion.
Well, we are looking forward to that. Make sure you check it out at GoPowerCat tomorrow morning. And Fitz, we will talk to you next week.
Thank you, boys.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, the absolute best of the best when it comes to covering all things K-State. Before we get to the news here at the top of the hour, I've got very important breaking news from Kauffman Stadium. Ryan O'Hearn is starting for the Baltimore Orioles tonight. He will be in the 9-hole playing first base.
I would say, he's definitely going yard tonight, but he's got like one home run in the last 2 years.
Shocking. He's still not good. We've got to take a break for the national and local news. We've got a very busy, jam-packed 5 o'clock hour coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk.
Are you in the market for
Hey now, 1 hour to go on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. He is Dan Lucero. We're with you until 6 when we will send things over to the Royals Radio Network and Royals baseball tonight against the Baltimore Orioles, game 2 of a 3-game set. In fact, we've got a short show tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not mistaken.
Day game, 1:10 first pitch for the Royals and O's tomorrow.
How about an hour-long rain delay before first pitch?
Not feeling work tomorrow?
I'm just saying. Games used to last 3 hours, man.
We went through a stretch in the last couple of years. 2 years ago, it was at its peak, where the Royals would just play 3.5-hour day games with regularity. And then Mike Matheny would talk to the media for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So post-game would take a half an hour. We'd be getting on at 580 Sports Talk at 5:08.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're here for 52 minutes. What do you want to talk about? Certainly not that Royals game, let me tell you what.
Yeah, usually that was not what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, here's the score. Here's the one guy who got a hit, and let's do 45 minutes of headlines. That's essentially what it was.
Now, there's a decent chance we might have to jump on the air before the end of the 3 o'clock hour.
No.
Depending on how quickly the pitchers want to work tomorrow.
We've already done that once this year.
Yes, we have.
So we will be on whenever Royals post game ends tomorrow, whether that's 3:45, 4, 4:15, whatever it is. We will be on with you for 580 Sports Talk until 6 tomorrow afternoon. Coming up here in this hour of the show, our 580 Sports Talk headlines, including the playoff roundup, coming up in just a moment. A note on the future of watching sports on TV, the good and the bad of ESPN's future business plans. We'll explain a little bit later on. Plus, we'll preview tonight's Royals and Orioles game. We'll take your texts throughout the show on the text line, 785-272-9429. Same number as the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And we will additionally be taking your comments on the YouTube feed. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe if you haven't already. It is the home of all of our online video content. And you can hop into the comment section and watch along on the live stream and hang out with the rest of the crew that's watching along today. Without further ado, how about our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this Wednesday, May 3rd? And the first one for me, do you enjoy The Match on TNT? I think it's TNT that usually shows it.
Yeah,
Although once it was on pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken.
I think one of the earlier ones was on pay-per-view, but yeah, they've taken
Tiger
it to
and Phil, yeah.
Turner. Yeah. Yeah, I dig it. It's kind of fun. I
Can
like golf. If it's a pairing or a foursome that I enjoy generally, then yeah, check it out.
Can I interest you in the Chiefs versus the Splash Brothers in The Match?
You absolutely can.
June 29th, start time of 5:30 Central on TNT. It will be Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce versus Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. The match number, I'm not sure what. That was just announced officially earlier on today. I think there were rumors about it yesterday, or it was leaked a little bit yesterday. That's a pretty fun grouping. In terms of guys I want to hear on my TV, I'm going to rank it from top to bottom. Kelsey's number one easily.
Yes.
Number one with a bullet.
Like, he could host a late night talk show, honestly.
He could. He really could.
Yeah. Up late with Travis Kelce. Like, I would watch it.
Number two, people might not believe me on this. I'm putting Klay number two. Low-key, Klay is really funny. He's got that dry sense of humor that I really appreciate. I think Klay Thompson's hilarious. I'd put him two. Mahomes a very close third. I'm putting Steph a distant fourth. I like watching Steph play basketball. I think he's probably a pretty good guy, just based on what we've heard about him. Not the most engaging personality in the world. That's how I would order it.
Here's the thing, though. Steph is a great trash talker. Like,
yeah,
really, really noteworthy trash talker. And he gets to talk his trash because a lot of times on the basketball court, he's the best player. He's definitely going to be the best of the four golfers. I went and looked it up. I did the legwork on this. Last published handicaps I could find for all four participants in the match. Klay Thompson is like a 14 or a 15 handicap, somewhere in that range. And now let's keep in mind that if they just give you a range, you could probably add about 4 or 5 strokes to that. So I'm guessing Klay Thompson's probably about an 18. Travis Kelce's an 11.
not bad.
Patrick Mahomes, when Golf Magazine reported this out, his was listed as a 7.7, which goes to show you that like he's taking this seriously enough to take it down to the tenths of a point.
Yeah.
He's at a 7.7. Steph Curry scratch.
Yeah, Steph's a really good golfer.
Outstanding golfer. So advantage Splash Brothers as they will have the best golfer. But if it's an alternate shot format, that might open things up for the more consistent play, you would think, potentially, of Mahomes and Kelsey.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hoot. Like I'm definitely intrigued to watch this. And Mahomes is not a stranger to this. He was in the one. Was it last summer? Him and I forget who he played with against Josh Allen and somebody else.
It was he and was it the old guys versus the young guys? Or was it one old guy, one young guy? Because Rodgers and Brady were in it.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I don't remember the pairings. I think it was the young guys versus the old guys.
I think you're right.
I think it was Mahomes and Allen versus Brady and Rodgers.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, they didn't go out there with any of the pros.
But if you are interested in the Chiefs, the champs versus the Splash Bros, actually, they're both champs right now. June 29th, that'll be on TNT starting at 5:30 Central Time. So DVR it so you can delay starting to watch it half an hour
After
and you can
we're
listen
done.
to us. Yeah.
Or we can just do live commentary.
Good.
We might what were we talking about that day? The Royals? No thanks. Like we can just do commentary on the match for the first hole or two instead.
I was going to say the Royals on that day, June 29th, they will be playing, if I can get the MLB.com site to open for me. It has been really slow recently, MLB.com has. On June 29th, the Royals will be playing the Guardians. A day game, in fact.
Oh.
It might not go very well because not many this year will for the Royals.
Yeah.
So,
safe assumption.
Yeah, we'll just get you ready for the match when we come on that day.
Perfect. Less show prep for us.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, first headline for me. Let's go ahead and get into another edition of everybody's favorite segment within a segment during the summer months or the late spring, early summer months.
Playoffs?
Roundup time. We're talking
Playoffs?
in the NBA and the NHL. There were 4 games last night, and there was more chaos in the NHL playoffs as the road teams both pulled upsets on day one of the conference semifinals, with the Florida Panthers stunning the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Seattle Kraken winning a wild one in overtime over the Dallas Joe Pavelskis in Dallas. Joe Pavelski, the veteran for the Stars, scored 4 goals. They were the only goals his team scored.
Yeah.
And usually 4 wins you a lot of hockey games, but the Kraken scored 4 in regulation and then got a Yanni Gourde winner in overtime. That Gourde, I swear he played 40 minutes a night against Colorado. He was always on the ice. And he scored like they scored another weird kind of fluky, like the camera lost the puck and then it was in the net. Kind of like the horseshoe jammed up the Kraken's ass has a horseshoe jammed up his ass right now. So that's kind of the experience of what it feels like watching that team in the playoffs. So 1-0 leads for the Panthers and the Kraken tonight. The other conference semifinals open up out east. It's the New Jersey Devils at the Carolina Hurricanes, while in the Western Conference, the Edmonton Oilers visit the Vegas Golden Knights.
Give me the Canes and the Oilers tonight.
Yep, that's who I picked to win the series. Oh, no, I picked the Devils to win the series. I think the Canes are pretty beat up, but maybe they take game 1 tonight at home. So much chaos in the playoffs, though.
Devils went through 7 games.
Yeah.
I got a hot tip. I'm gonna go with the Canes. Shout out to my guy, the doctor. Dr. Moneyline helped me out.
Dr. Moneyline's on the Canes.
That's Dr. Moneyline's pick for tonight.
Dr. Moneyline's on the Canes at home. Okay, a little more rest for them. I could see it. I could certainly see it. In the NBA last night, the New York Knicks outlasted the Miami Heat at Madison Square Garden, and they even that Eastern Conference semifinal series at a game apiece, while the Lakers get a Herculean effort from Anthony Davis. 30 points, 23 rebounds, and tremendous rim protection, forcing the Warriors to take 53 three-point shots, the last of which was a 35-footer from Jordan Poole with the team down by 3 and 8 seconds left. Maybe the most ill-advised shot since Carlton Banks tried a half-court game winner in that episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
When I watched it happen, thought, that shot sucks. And then I saw some reaction on Twitter that, well, it was open. I mean, an open shot in that moment is a good shot. And I thought, well, no, but okay, I see that. Then this morning on ESPN, Tim Legler, this clip has gone semi-viral on Twitter since, explained why, in fact, that was a very bad shot. And in fact, it was worse than it originally looked.
You would rather have Steph Curry try and shoot over a triple team than Jordan Poole shoot wide open in that spot, because Steph Curry is Steph Curry and Jordan Poole is Jordan Poole, a guy who owes the bums that the Nuggets were running out at guard in the playoffs in the first round last year. He owes them 3% of his salary every year, because he does not get that contract if he doesn't light up Facundo Campazzo for 5 games in that series last year.
If you go to a gym or a park or a YMCA and you see kids playing pickup basketball, honestly, not even kids, you see anyone playing pickup basketball, you are bound to say within a couple minutes, that dude thinks he's Steph Curry. You know who also thinks he's Steph Curry? Jordan Poole.
Look, I'm not condoning Draymond Green punching him in the face. I'm just saying I get why it happened.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying I understand it.
And as unlikable as Rudy Gobert is, last round in the playoffs, after watching Christian Brown punk Kyle Anderson, I thought I might have gotten that one too. I may understand that one a little bit more too.
So the Lakers win game 1 at Golden State. They lead that series 1-0. The big question is, the famously durable Anthony Davis played 44 minutes last night to put up that 30 and 23 and win by 5. Can he keep doing that? Because, if he can keep doing that, then, yeah, the Lakers are going to be, because Anthony Davis is a mismatch for everybody, and they're dangerous when he plays like that at that volume. But again, we're talking about Anthony Davis here, who always seems seconds away from some sort of injury calamity.
Yeah, notoriously fragile.
So,
history tells us no.
Yeah, if they want to play him 45 minutes tonight, then we'll see how his legs are by game 3. Never mind later in the series, because I think it's gonna be a long series. I have no idea who's gonna win it. Certainly the Lakers with a leg up, having won on the road in game 1 tonight. Only one NBA game tonight. The Sixers get Joel Embiid back into the lineup as they try to take a 2-0 lead on the Boston Celtics. That game in Boston. Speaking of Joel Embiid, as expected, he was named the NBA's most valuable player yesterday, taking home his first career MVP nod.
I'm happy for Joel Embiid. I know I view him more favorably than I know you do.
So I don't hate Joel Embiid. I can very much acknowledge he's an outstanding player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna come out here and try and talk him down. Be like some people have to say, well, Nikola Jokic isn't good at defense. He's white and fat and slow. He can't be good at defense, and that's why he shouldn't ever win MVP. I'm not gonna do that with Joel Embiid. I'm not gonna talk about the negatives to his game, because everybody's got negatives. He's an awesome player. He's an awesome player. Playing 60 games this year. How can you be valuable when you're missing that much time?
Going forward, it won't count.
Yeah.
So, he got a point. You need to play 65 starting next season. Is it next season? Or
I think it's next season. Yeah, I just don't understand a guy that missed that much time. And it was so strange. The dialogue was
he didn't play 66 this year.
66. Okay. The dialogue this year was, hey, Nikola Jokic is going to win the 3rd straight MVP. He's going to lead the league in all the stuff he led the league in before. And now the thing that he didn't do last year that made people not want to vote for him, which was play for a team that won the Western Conference. They won the regular season in the Western Conference. They were the number 1 seed. The main point of criticism for Jokic had been totally removed. So he was going to win MVP again. And then Kendrick Perkins got on TV and said, if you vote for Jokic again, you're racist. And that changed the tenor of the conversation and swung the vote towards Joel Embiid. Congratulations to Kendrick Perkins. He swung the MVP on his own.
Joel had a great year.
He did.
He shot nearly 12 free throws a game and shot 85.7% on them. He's one of the best big man free throw shooters ever. 10 rebounds a game, which 10.2 rebounds is actually the second lowest total of his career. His lowest was 7.8. That was the first year he played at all back in 16-17. Missed his first 2 years because of injury.
Mm-hmm.
Led the NBA in scoring 33.1 points a game. I mean, he was awesome.
Yeah, scoring leader for a really good team. That's a very compelling MVP case. If I had voted for somebody not named Nikola Jokic to win MVP this year, I would have voted for Giannis.
Yeah, I think a lot of
I was surprised.
Folks thought he deserved more credit.
I believe Giannis was 3rd. No, I think he might have been 2nd in the. I forget who was 2nd or 3rd between Jokic. No, it was Jokic 2nd and Giannis a really close 3rd. there were 100 ballots. Somebody didn't put Jokic on their ballot at all. You get 5 slots. And one voter did not vote for Jokic at all. Did not think he was a top 5 player in the league this year.
Maybe it was Mark Kisla of the Denver Post, and that's why he wrote a weird story about Jokic's underwear today.
No, it was definitely Nick Wright.
Oh, probably. Yeah, that's probably true. They should really only let people who actually know about basketball vote for those things, but that's a story for a different day.
Like, I don't know. I'm not real bitter about it. I remember that Giannis won 2 straight MVPs, and everybody said, well, you can't give him a 3rd straight. And then he didn't win the MVP in 2021, but he did win the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And if Nikola Jokic follows the same path, I am afraid to say it.
Then we're not going to make you say it.
You're going to have to get me off the ceiling.
Who you got tonight?
Tonight, I think the Celtics punch back and win that game tonight.
I think so too.
I think they know how to play Philadelphia with Embiid in the lineup better than they do when he's not in the lineup.
That's fair. I think that's a fair way to put it. By the way, if you want to celebrate Joel Embiid winning the MVP the best way possible, the way that would make Joel the proudest, go get wings at Jefferson's. Go get the turbo wings at Jefferson's. That is how he would want you to celebrate, and I am not kidding about that. Next up on our 580 Sports Talk sports headlines for this Wednesday afternoon. This one coming from K-State today. Initially saw it reported by, I believe it was Tim Everson, yes, from the Manhattan Mercury. Kansas State women's basketball is going to play Missouri this year in what is being named the Bill Snyder Classic on December 9th in his hometown. They're going to play in St. Joe, Missouri. I don't know where this is going to be played. I would think it might be at Mo West. I don't know. I don't know what other kind of facilities are in St. Joe. But a very cool thing for K-State sports in general to have something named for Bill Snyder. It is a little funny that it's the women's basketball program, but that is very cool for K-State. So if you're looking forward to some K-State women's hoops, which, by the way, should be really good next year, possibly a cool opportunity to go see an old conference foe in a pretty cool place in St. Joe, named for Bill Snyder.
Next headline for me on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. This being reported by Sports Illustrated, but I'm reading the aggregation of it from CBS Sports. The Big 12 Conference and its media partners are exploring avenues to modernize football broadcasts. Live in-game interviews, expanded locker room access, and coaches wearing microphones were concepts reportedly discussed during meetings between Big 12 football coaches and administrators during spring meetings in Scottsdale, Arizona. Weird. The Big 12 had meetings in Arizona. That's interesting. Wild. The report comes days after sources had reported that the Big 12 is eyeing a multi-year deal to hold conference games in football and both men's and women's basketball in Mexico as soon as 2024. We discussed that on an edition of Headlines earlier this week. Both developments fall under a larger first-year plan under Commissioner Brett Yormark to bolster the conference. So these concepts, in-game interviews, expanded locker room access, coaches wearing microphones, we see a lot of that in the spring football leagues.
XFL, yeah.
What are you, as somebody who watches more XFL than me, what are your thoughts on those? Do you think they add to the broadcast? Do they add to your enjoyment, understanding of what it is that you're seeing? Are those a net positive for the broadcast and for the product?
The locker room stuff is okay. I mean, I don't tune in to see it. It is kind of cool. Honestly, more cool than the actual interviews is when they just have the cameras. Like some guys are meeting over by a whiteboard. You know, the defensive linemen are meeting, hey, we got to adjust to this. Or the wide receivers might just be talking, and then, you know, the quarterback's talking to the reporter, whatever it might end up being. That's fine. I don't feel one way or the other about it. Honestly, I actively do not want more interviews with coaches. I like Lance Leipold a whole lot. As a guy, as a coach, love him. I don't need to hear him say, we got to take care of the ball and not commit penalties. Like, we
need to tackle better.
I gave you every single first quarter coach interview the entire season. Like, they happen during the NBA games. I think it's every single game, especially during the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And NCAA tournament, too, during the tournament itself.
Yeah, they started doing that this year.
You know, first media time out of each half or whatever. They suck. They are useless. Well, we need to play harder, and we got to really buckle down on defense. Wow, great take. Thanks, Eric Musselman or Danny Hurley or literally every other coach in the tournament. It's just they're completely meaningless to me. So I actively do not want more of those because they're a waste of time. Locker room, fine. Mic'd up, maybe. I'm whatever on that.
That's interesting stuff after the fact.
Yes, I agree with that.
Like if, let's say you've got players, like a player on each team wearing a mic during a week of Big 12 play, and then like you take the best of that stuff and you put it on like ESPN Plus, like a part of like an inside Big 12 football type of show where you show some highlights, like inside the NFL used to be, right?
Yeah, I'd watch that.
I would watch the hell out of that. I'd be fascinated to hear some of that stuff. But yeah, I don't love the in-game interviews, but it does have the effect of making your game feel like it's as big a deal as an NCAA tournament game or an NBA playoff game or even an NFL game, to hear more from the coaches in the middle of it that makes it feel like a bigger presentation. So I understand the lean. I bet I could tell you how each coach, if they got to vote, would vote on it. I feel like I had a pretty good a pulse on that.
You know who would love doing this if his team was in this conference? The new head coach at the University of Colorado. You don't think he would love to do? You don't think Prime would love to be Coach Prime for a few extra minutes during every game?
Texter from the 785 makes a good point about how would this have gone if Bill Snyder was the head coach still around?
It wouldn't have. He would have paid the fine.
Yeah, he absolutely would have. Yeah, he would have just said, whatever you're going to find me, here's a blank check. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I will make a donation at the start of the year. I mean, I guess you could talk. I mean, he would have sent his kid. He would have made Sean do it.
Yeah.
That's probably what he would have done, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. It just, they don't add anything. And to the point about mic'd up too, I think ESPN and TNT do it for basketball during the regular season for the NBA, but they do the Wired or the Live, or let's go into the huddle and see what Steve Kerr said during the timeout. We got to focus. We got to lock in. Remember the game plan. Wow, great stuff, Steve Kerr.
Yeah, like we've mic'd up Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and he's just like, got to play hard. Got to rebound.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Good shot, Jamal.
That does not add anything.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Like, yeah. And then, I mean, you've got short turnaround time on editing that. Sometimes you can't mine the pearls. That's a mixed metaphor, but you get what I'm saying.
No, I do. Yeah. They are trying to make this league a true entertainment spectacle.
Yes.
Like, this is entertainment around a football game more than it is a football game. And I get it, but I slow down a little bit. Just chill out a little bit. Let's see how one or two things go before we get into too much. One more headline for me. We teased this a little bit earlier on. Find you a friend as good as Randall Cobb has Aaron Rodgers. Randall Cobb has been signed by the Green Bay Packers. Cobb's a great dude. Everybody says great things about him. He's still probably good for 25, 30 catches next season. He's still a fine player when he's healthy. Alan Lazard, Billy Turner, now Randall Cobb. I assume at some point, former tight end Bronson Kafusi will probably be signed by them. Would I be shocked at any point if any other former Green Bay Packer from the last 15 years wanted to play for them? No, not even one bit. But hey, if you've got a friend who's going to be that good to you and is going to get you an extra $1 million to hang out and play football, that's a good friend. I hope everybody has someone like that in their life.
That's the truth.
Yeah. How nice would that be? Any others for you?
No, I think that's where we can call it today.
Let's finish up then our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. When we come back on the other side of this timeout, some interesting quotes from the CEO of Disney this week about the future of ESPN, how it might change your consumption of sports, or possibly why it might not change your consumption of sports. We'll discuss next on 580 Sports Talk.
Talking with Dr. J.
Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk. Royals baseball coming up tonight. Royals baseball will also eat into the start of the show tomorrow, but we'll join you on Thursday afternoon following Royals postgame up until 6 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW and on YouTube, our channel called Sports on 580 WIBW. I was reading yesterday a story in Bloomberg, or on Bloomberg.com, I suppose I should say, about some quotes from Bob Iger, who you may or may not know is the CEO of Disney. And he was the CEO, then he wasn't for a while, and then they spent a whole bunch of money they probably shouldn't have spent. So now he's back to clear things out. Shout out to Bob Chapek. So Bob Iger is back as the head of Disney. And one of the things that he is tasked with doing, in fact, the biggest thing he's tasked with doing is cutting the budget and figuring out how to make things look even better for their shareholders. Why am I telling you about this? So one of those things is ESPN and being smarter with their money. Last week, I believe it was, they fired a bunch of people, laid off a bunch of people behind the scenes. It is expected, it's been reported by Andrew Marchand, that they are going to lay off on-screen and website personnel sometime in the near future as well. Who knows exactly who? But essentially, if you're not Stephen A. Smith and you're not Scott Van Pelt, you might be laid off by ESPN sometime in the near future. And they've also been very public about, well, we are going to be careful with what kind of rights we buy for games going forward. We know they've got the deals with the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC. They're never going to get rid of the NFL as long as they can avoid it. They've way trimmed back on their MLB coverage. They have one national game a week and then selected games throughout the year. It used to be, 3 nights a week for MLB on ESPN? Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, I think. And now it's just one, and then a couple other ones during the course of the season. And the NBA contract is coming up soon. They don't know if they are going to bid for as many games, if they still want to do Wednesdays and Fridays, or what they want to do. So this is all important because Iger said recently that he is going to defer a lot to Jimmy Pitaro, the head of ESPN, about what ESPN's business is going to look like going forward. What do they want to bid on? What do they think belongs on the air? What do they think belongs on their digital platform, ESPN Plus? That is where this becomes more interesting, I think, to the consumers, to us, the people who want to watch sports, who care about sports, who are going to indulge ourselves in watching sports. Now, if you are in our area of the country, if you're listening to the show, you probably care about KU or K-State, or Oklahoma State, or OU, or Iowa State, or one of our Big 12 programs, in all likelihood. You probably already have ESPN Plus, and you're watching it because it's a necessary evil, because a couple football games a year for every team is on there, a handful, half a dozen basketball games or more, conference or otherwise, are on there every year. You probably have it. You might not like it, but you're kind of stuck with it.
If you like the Olympic sports, that's where those are too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you watch, K-State baseball or KU baseball or women's basketball, volleyball. That's where you can find a lot of the Olympic sports.
And if you have it already and you've kept it, you probably know it's actually if you can get it to work and you have a good internet connection, it's actually a really good service. I mean, there's so much you can watch on there. If you're into soccer, especially other conferences, mid-major conferences, non-revenue sports.
Lots of, if you like Olympic sports, if you're a college baseball fan, it's totally essential. They got all kinds of cool stuff on there. They really do.
All the 30 for 30s.
Yeah, lots of great original content, documentary type stuff, season inside type videos, highlight shows, like
their hockey highlight show, in fact.
Yeah, In the Crease is on there every night. Like, it is there's a lot of bang for your buck. I think right now it's like $6.99 a month or $7.99 a month, something like that. But there's a ton of bang for the buck with it. Like, it's an easy purchase for me, and it would be even if not for the Big 12 plus element of it.
So ESPN, and in this story from Bloomberg, they talk about how ESPN Plus is not just a little side project now. It is a main focus, or one of the main focuses of their entire business. And it includes this line midway through the story. The network's streaming ambitions keep growing. As part of ongoing negotiations with the NBA over a new contract that takes effect in 2025, ESPN executives want to acquire the rights to put pro basketball games on ESPN Plus. So they're not content with just, hey, every SEC team's FCS game and a number of Big 12 games, football and basketball, plus the Olympic sports. No, we want to put pro sports on ESPN Plus. We want to, and not just like what they do with the NHL, where they have their center ice.
Yeah, it used to be center ice. It would be something, you'd buy through the league. You get all the games, out of market games.
Mm-hmm. It's like MLB.TV.
Yeah.
But it's all, the NHL is now all through ESPN Plus.
They folded it into ESPN Plus, essentially.
So they want to do something that is similar to that. Like, hey, if you want to watch Wednesday night NBA, the national game, it's going to be on ESPN Plus. You want to watch Warriors-Lakers tonight, it's going to be on ESPN Plus. That is what they want to do. So that is trying to drive more and more people to subscribe to it, to either subscribe to just ESPN Plus or they get, the Disney thing. You get Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus. That's what we do. We don't even use Disney Plus, but we do that because it's a good deal. And
I'm about to
I
haven't logged into Disney Plus in quite a long time, but they are releasing, I believe, a Ed Sheeran documentary that I'm sure my wife's going to want to watch.
I think that is probably true. I would imagine she will. So they're trying to steer more and more people to ESPN Plus. Again, if you already live here, you might have it already, or at least you have it between September and March. So it might not change all that much for you. But this is going to change a lot of the way people consume sports if they know there's going to be national games on ESPN Plus for the NBA. There was an NFL game in London this year that was ESPN Plus only. ESPN's London game was ESPN Plus only. That's a big deal. That's an NFL game. That is the biggest one.
Was it the London game or was it because yeah, you're right. It was Jags Broncos. Yeah. It was ESPN Plus only. Yeah.
It was the one Dan Orlovsky did on TV. I don't know why I remember that detail, but
woke up early to watch Trevor Lawrence throw interception in the end zone.
But that is the goal of ESPN. And you might be rolling your eyes and say, well, I don't want that. But unfortunately, it's rarely about what we want. It's about these companies. They notice the trends and they say people don't want cable anymore. ESPN is the reason a lot of people have cable.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we believe it or not, it's true.
Just sports in general.
Because it's the last thing that everybody has to see when it's on. Because everything else, oh, man, I missed the 14th new spinoff of Game of Thrones. Oh, I'll just watch it on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Oh, this sick new show. Oh, it's actually on Hulu and also Disney Plus and on Amazon.
Yeah, we catch it the next day. Like, the DVR started that. Now, like, any show you want, like, we can just catch it on one of the many streaming services we pay for.
So that is the way this is going. And if it's felt like that for a while, like, man, it feels like everything's online. The company is now telling you, no, that's what we're doing. Like, we want it to be like that. The other interesting part about this, though, is that they straight up said, I think this was Pitaro, the head of ESPN, we're getting to a point where we take our entire network, our entire flagship programming, and make it available direct to consumer. That's a when, not an if. We're only going to do it when it makes sense for our business and for our bottom line. In layman's terms, there will be a time somewhere in the near future where you don't have to have cable to get ESPN.
Yeah.
And ESPN2 and the SEC network and ACC network and ESPNU and all that.
You can just watch all of their linear programming on the app.
So on one side of this, if you want you're, cable subscriber, you're, maybe in an older demographic or a rural demographic, especially where it's hard to get good internet to stream things, you might think, damn, I don't want things on ESPN Plus because it's harder for me to get it. That's a bad thing. But if you are a cord cutter and you don't want to have to pay the big cable bill, it's often bundled with phone and internet or whatever, probably not phone anymore. You don't want to pay that big bill anymore. You want to get rid of it. Soon there's going to be an option where you can get rid of it and just get ESPN. Like before I got married, because my wife watches other channels than I do, if that had been an option, I would have gotten rid of whatever streaming service I had many years ago. And I say, all I watch is ESPN and then over-the-air NFL. I don't watch anything else. So sure, I'll just pay for that. That would be great. That'd be phenomenal. That's where we're going. And it sounds like that's going to happen sooner rather than later. They're still going to be on cable. Like, if you still want to pay for Cox or Spectrum here?
I don't think so.
I think it might just be Cox in town or Dish Network or whatever. You're still going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you'd rather not pay for that and just get ESPN, you can do that, I would guess, within 5 years.
Yeah, that feels like it's coming. And I know we have a texter who points this out correctly from the 785 that streaming is not always the most viable option for every single person. It's not. You have people who don't have a great internet connection because, rural living sometimes doesn't afford you the best opportunity to get a great wireless or internet connection.
Uh-huh.
There are people who don't have the technological wherewithal to operate the Roku or the Apple TV or the Google TV or whatever it is that allows you to put those things, go from putting them on your computer to putting them on your TV. That's all true. At the same time, we are technologically, I think, advancing. And I think we'll get to the point where those things become less disadvantageous. I think I may have made up that word.
I think disadvantageous is a word.
Less of a disadvantage to live in a rural area, or to, if you're in your 70s and you may not be as familiar with a Roku or something along those lines, or a smart TV, chances are that your children or your grandchildren can help you figure it out, because it's not rocket science. You don't, it really, I don't say that flippantly. I know it's not easy for everybody, but it's achievable for everybody to learn that if you want to learn it. If that's where your sports are and you really want to watch sports, you figure it out. So I do think this is it's always kind of felt like this is where we are headed, and the way we consume sports, not just from a direct consumer ESPN option standpoint, but also from where we find our local teams. Like, that landscape is also changing very rapidly with the impending demise of the regional sports network. How we consume our local teams, that might be digital. That might be direct to consumer streaming for your local teams, in addition to whatever leagues it is you like. And the further along we go, the more we get used to, hey, this is content we want, so we pay for it. I get where at the time it feels like, man, I'm paying X amount for cable, too much probably.
Yeah.
I got to pay $6 for ESPN Plus too. Well, if the content is good enough and it's content you want, you pay for it. That's a pretty simple calculus. Everybody's got $6, most everybody, to spend per month if you want ESPN Plus, or $7 or $14 for the bundle, or whatever it is. Like, if that's content you want, you pay for it. And if it's not content you want, you don't. And now you'll have even more of an option to be able to just get ESPN Plus. And I think it'll be a net positive. It'll be a struggle for some, absolutely, not discounting that, but it'll be workable for everybody who wants it to be workable for them.
It's coming soon. I don't know exactly how soon, but it is going to be here not all that long from now. Let's get to one more quick break. We'll come back, preview Royals O's tonight on 580 Sports Talk.
It's go.
few minutes here of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan joining you on this Wednesday. Royals-Orioles tonight. Going for the Royals, it'll be Zach Greinke. Meanwhile, Kyle Gibson for the Orioles. Gibson's been just so far this year for the O's. Greinke started the year really well. And then in the 4 starts since, he has a combined 8.24 ERA.
It's not what you want.
It's not especially good. His opposing OPS is 955. In other words, opposing batters are effectively Mike Trout against Greinke since April 10th.
Oof.
That's Trout's OPS for the year.
Big oof.
Yeah, it's been pretty gross. Gibson can be got. He hasn't been great to start the year. Royals have, well, they've had some moments where they've really hit off of him in the past. They've also had some moments where they have really struggled against him in the past. They put up plenty of runs yesterday. The Orioles are starting Ryan O'Hearn today. I haven't seen the matchup for tomorrow. I guess I'll check right now. But I feel like this one, with Greinke back at home, you do have a chance. 2 starts at the beginning of the year are both at home. Maybe this is one the Royals can sneak away with in this series. Tomorrow, it'll be Grayson Rodriguez versus Jordan Lyles. Okay, so if you're going to get a win, it would be nice to be this one. Gibson, by the way, 4-0 for the year, but his ERA just under 4. So you can put up some runs against him.
I am pulling up the total for tonight's game.
Okay.
Wanted to get a look at what the total is tonight. Total is 9 on FanDuel. Minus 105 to the over, minus 115 to the under. First 5 inning total runs is 4.5. And there's a bit of juice on the over, minus 120, but I think I like that. I could see, like last night, a lot of runs in the early going off of one or both of these guys.
Greinke's been bad. Gibson's just been I think they can get 5 runs in 5 innings combined. I was just telling you earlier how much I hate betting overs and unders, but I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Do you have any other action anywhere tonight?
No, I honestly looking very seriously at playing the totals, playing the overs in Orioles Royals. It was 11-7 last night.
Yeah, 18 runs last night.
Yeah, like neither of these guys are any great shakes. I know the Royals lineup is also not any great shakes, but no, it could be some runs tonight.
I'm already 0 for 2 for the day. I had some Premier League action.
Yeah.
Prem, that didn't go well. Did Man City end up winning that game? Probably.
Yeah, they won 3-0.
Oh, great. Wow, Jake was right. We both had the same bet. Man City to score in both halves.
Yeah, they drew a blank in the first half.
Yeah,
very
0
rare
in the first half.
Very
and Jake
rare.
said, watch them win 3-0. Well, they did. Awesome. Great. Good stuff. Maybe Jake should have bet that. And then I had the Rangers to beat the Diamondbacks. That did not happen. So I've got some action tonight, though. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing in the Orioles-Royals game because I don't want to make fans sad. But I got Carolina in the hockey tonight. And
Carolina in the hockey.
Yep.
Shout out Dr. Moneyline.
And yeah, shout out to the doctor. And then James Harden over 2.5 3-pointers in the Sixers-Celtics game.
I hesitate always to put any financial interest on teams that I actually like. You know, I typically go for the emotional hedge.
Yeah.
But the Milwaukee Brewers are throwing Eric Lauer at the Colorado Rockies tonight, and no pitcher historically has had worse results at Coors Field than Eric Lauer. And he's going up against Kyle Freeland, who's Colorado's best pitcher. Colorado's minus 102 to the money line. Just throwing that out there.
Are you going to do it?
I think I might do it.
Love it. We'll let you know how these go tomorrow when we join you for 580 Sports Talk. Let's take a quick break. We'll finish things up with the final word after this.
Injury, illness, COVID.
better wrap it up.
Wrapping up 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Don't forget, we will be back tomorrow following Royals baseball. They will play the whole game in the finale against the Orioles. They'll do post-game, and then we will join you up until 6 o'clock. That is tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk. We'll talk to Rick Peterson tomorrow as well for the high school whip-around, the Invista Credit Union high school whip-around about Pistols, induction into the Shawnee County Sports Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Dan, your final word.
We are already at the point of the Kansas City Royals season where rooting for wins and losses is beside the point. They are doing entirely too much losing to get your hopes up about any wins. So root for cool baseball stuff. There was a lot of that last night for the Royals. Bobby Witt Jr. hit a dinger. MJ Melendez socked a dinger. Salvador Perez socked 2 dingers. That's all cool baseball stuff. Root for some more cool baseball stuff tonight. Maybe it'll result in a win. Maybe it won't. Probably it won't, given their track record. But keep on rooting for good baseball stuff. That's one way to consume the boys in blue.
Final word for me today. K-State landed one of the best possible transfer portal gets of anyone last night when they got Tylor Perry from North Texas. This dude can play. I'm not going to lie and say I watched a ton of UNT basketball during the regular season, but I did watch a lot of them in the NIT last year. And I watched some tape to put together some video stuff for the YouTube channel. This dude can play. He can score. He can facilitate. He's got good handles, good defender. K-State hit a home run with Tylor Perry, and I think he's going to be a very special player for the next couple of years for Kansas State basketball. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. Don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour, we'll send it to the Royals Radio Network for pregame ahead of Royals versus Orioles. And again, we'll join you tomorrow after day game, post game. Don't forget to check out the podcast version of the show, 580WIBW.com. Head to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It's called Sports on 580 WIBW. For Dan, I'm Brendan. We'll talk to you tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk.